Chapter 794 Secret Dharma Treasure. Chapter 794 Secret Dharma Treasure. I hereby declare that my heart will exist forever with the heavenly Tao. I will definitely draw a clear line with teacher, if he wants to harm the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said solemnly as he scanned all the sages. This sentence was also a warning to them. Ever since the great Tao sages in the deity realm of the ruins of End expressed goodwill to the heavenly Tao, the heavenly Tao had been close to their world. Perhaps someone was very close to the deity realm of the ruins of End. Yang Che snorted. The era is different. Why should the current heavenly Tao fear the three pure sacred world? In terms of sages, our numbers surpass them. We're also far superior in terms of the number of living beings. There is no world as complete and prosperous as the heavenly Tao in the entire chaos. Su Dudao, Li Taigu Zhang Guxing, and the other new sages nodded. They were undying and indestructible in the heavenly Tao after becoming heavenly Tao sages. It was very easy for them to become arrogant. In their opinion, they couldn't be killed even if they could not defeat a great Tao sage. Why should they be afraid? Primordial Chaos Buddha smiled. How can we be bewitched by the outside world with such a powerful heavenly Tao? Please keep reading 0 in MYB0's novel. C0M looking at the new sages, they shook their heads and laughed. But they did not say anything. This was also a good thing. The more they knew, the more afraid they would be. They might even rebel. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, that's right. We can accept any move if the three pure sacred world wants to target the heavenly Tao. We won't reject anyone. The current heavenly Tao is no longer the weak heavenly Tao from back then. For a time, the atmosphere in the Universal Hall eased. We can't just wait. We have to think of a way to deal with it. We should make a decision now that the chaotic life forms want to join the heavenly Tao, Pan Xian said. The current heavenly Tao had always sent cultivators out, and did not recruit other living beings. It was mainly because the heavenly Tao was extremely exclusive. Without the providence and karma of the heavenly Tao, one could not enter without permission. If one forcefully entered, they would be squeezed by the providence, such as being unable to cultivate in the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said in a low voice, there are good and bad things about this matter. We indeed have to make a decision. It depends on what we want the heavenly Tao to become. Should we stay in peace, or become the center of the chaos? Feng Liang said, of course the center of the chaos. We won't be caught by the enemy, as long as we continue to grow. That's right. How can we let this go? I also support openness. Let them in. It's a good opportunity to open up more mortal worlds. I agree. The other sages spoke one after another. None of them retorted. It was mainly because the heavenly Tao had only risen for 1,000,000 years. The sages did not encounter any major obstacles. They were all in high spirits and were still sharp. Hanju had no objections. Thus the matter was settled. In the end, the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate was chosen to be in charge of this matter. He would make a great wish, and create a holy land, that especially gave the providence of the heavenly Tao to the chaotic life forms. They had to stay in that holy land for a period of time, if they wanted to fuse with the heavenly Tao. Yes, it sounded like a household registration program. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was very excited. He had long seen the situation of the heavenly Tao. He had never submitted to Hanju, and thought that the benefits wouldn't fall on him. He looked at Hanju gratefully, thinking that it was his intention. Hanju was baffled but still nodded slightly at him. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate was even more excited, but he restrained himself very well. The other sages caught their actions. The new sages let their imagination run wild, and the old sages were enlightened. The seemingly harmonious Universal Hall was secretly filled with excitement. Hanju didn't think too much, and there was no need to. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du spoke of the second matter. I heard that a living being consumed the primordial pill, and triggered the supreme rule of the chaos. The supreme rule will transform into 10,000 divine authority generals to monitor the entire chaos. I wonder when it will arrive at the heavenly Tao. This news has already spread in the chaos. What do you think? Emperor Shao asked how. To enter the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, of course. The sages were in an uproar and began to communicate. Most sages did not want sages or existences beyond sages to enter the heavenly Tao to prevent anything bad from happening. After discussing for an hour, the sages reached a consensus that they could not let the divine authority generals enter the heavenly Tao. Hanju laughed secretly. There are 10,000 great Tao sages, can you stop them? Hanju didn't say it directly, afraid that he would scare the sages. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's information was clearly flawed, but that was normal. Very few living beings knew matters that involved the great Tao Providence divine authority. There were still more than 4 million years to go. Hanju could tell the heavenly Tao sages when the time came. There was no need to panic. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du looked at him and said, "The 12 ancestral magi have visited the heavenly Tao. I'm afraid they have ill intentions. At that time, fellow Taoist Han has to appear. After all, Di Jiang and Zhu Juyin are great Tao sages. The other ancestral magi are also freedom sages." 12 ancestral magi? Hanju thought for a moment and then said, "All right." These people's cultivation levels were not as high as his, let alone their combat ability. The new sages couldn't help but look forward to the arrival of the 12 ancestral magi. They mainly wanted to see how powerful Hanju was. In the past, the battle ended too quickly when the divine robe Taoist attacked, including the sages. They only knew that Hanju was very strong. As for how strong, they didn't have any deep sensation. Just like that, the discussion ended. Hanju stood up and left. Pan Xian suddenly appeared in front of him and said, "Fellow Taoist Han, can you come to Pango Hall?" Hanju nodded. Pan Xian probably had something on. The two of them left. Although the other sages were curious, they did not ask. In the Pango Hall, Hanju and Pan Xian sat opposite each other. Pan Xian said worriedly, "I didn't want to alarm you, but I'm really indignant. My heaven-opening axe was stolen." Heaven-opening axe? Hanju showed a frown. Pan Xian's heaven-opening axe was very powerful. It had left a deep impression on Hanju back then. It was not a good thing for such a supreme treasure to fall into life's hands. "Do you know who stole it?" Hanju asked. Pan Xian gritted his teeth and said, "It should be Ancestor Shitian." Among the lives that have appeared near the chaotic heavenly road recently, Ancestor Shitian is the most frequent. Furthermore, he's very strong and has the ability to directly absorb my heaven-opening axe. Ancestor Shitian? Hanju frowned even more. He felt that Ancestor Shitian was not such a person. Who stole Pan Xian's heaven-opening axe? 150 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Because your heaven-opening axe has been upgraded to an ultimate Tao treasure. His heaven-opening axe has automatically dissipated. Ultimate Tao treasures are unique, caused by great karma. Hanju's expression became strange when he saw this line of words. So the thief is me? Pan Xian hesitated. If you're troubled, then forget it. Hanju said, "The heavenly Tao owes the ancestor huge karma. Have you seen it with your own eyes, or has he admitted it?" "No, I'm just guessing." Hanju sighed and took out the Killing Tao token. He said, "This is the Killing Tao token, a slaughter supreme treasure. You can kill enemies by sacrificing your lifespan and providence. Your words carry weight. The only flaw is that you can't kill living beings without invoking karma. I'll give it to you. I hope you can continue to protect the heavenly Tao." Hanju didn't plan to tell the truth about the heaven-opening axe. There might be future trouble if he didn't understand. The heaven-opening axe was his secret Dharma treasure. Chapter 795 Competition of the Hidden Sect. Chapter 795 Competition of the Hidden Sect. Thank you, Master. I will definitely protect the heavenly Tao even if I have to die. Pan Xian took the Killing Tao token and said excitedly. He began to kowtow. The Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure was a supreme treasure that was difficult to find even in the chaos. To him, a freedom sage, it was definitely enough. Hanju patted his shoulder and said earnestly, "Life is too mysterious. Without the confidence to overturn them, it's very difficult for the heavenly Tao to do anything to them. You have to understand this. The current heavenly Tao looks powerful, but you should know what the heavenly Tao before the calamity was like." Pan Xian nodded heavily. "I understand. I won't pester life anymore. Hanju said. Of course, if anyone dares to harm the heavenly Tao, kill them if you're confident. All right. Pan Xian was very excited. He touched the killing Tao token lovingly after Hanju left. He could sense the power contained in the token. The killing intent was very strong. Perhaps it was not as domineering as the heaven-opening axe, but it was not that far off. Please keep reading 0 in MYB0's novel. C0M Hanju returned to the Taoist temple in the 100-peak Immortal River and teleported to the second Tao field. He released the nurtured killing intent fiend celestial and let Morongqi receive him. Morongqi was very happy. He finally had a new companion. As the fiend celestials became stronger, he was already looking forward to the scene of the fiend celestial army rampaging through the chaos. Tao Comprehension Sword looked at Hanju and asked after the two of them left, Master, when are you planning to let us enter the myriad worlds projection again? We promise not to leak the secret. We just want to communicate with the outside world. Hanju hesitated for a moment but still nodded. He believed that Morongqi, Han Ming, and the others would not tell anyone. Besides, his personal disciples would become chaotic fiend celestials in the future. There was no need to hide it too deeply. It was mainly because Hanju's Tao field was already invincible. He would not be afraid even if the fiend celestial army was exposed. With a thought, Hanju pulled the personal disciples of the second Tao field into the myriad worlds projection. As for the chaotic fiend celestials he created, he didn't let them in for the time being. He sent a voice transmission to every personal disciple in the second Tao field, strictly forbidding them from telling anyone anything about the fiend celestial army. They would be severely punished once they were discovered. After doing all of this, he returned to the main Tao field to cultivate. In the myriad worlds projection, Tao Comprehension Sword, Morongqi, Liao Great Loose Heaven, Han Ming, Yangdu Guanbubi, and the Crimson Fox appeared. The Crimson Fox, Great Loose Heaven, Han Ming, Yangdu, and Guanbubi were very curious about the myriad worlds projection. Fortunately, Morongqi introduced it to them. The myriad worlds projection was not big. It was equivalent to a dark palace, and it only provided them with information. The missing people have returned. The Black Hell Chicken suddenly shouted, startling the other personal disciples in the myriad worlds projection. Everyone gathered around and asked where they had gone. Morongqi and the others only said that it was arranged by Master. It was confidential and could not be disclosed. Upon hearing that it involved Hanju, the personal disciples didn't dare to ask anymore. Zhao Xianyuan walked over and said smugly, Brothers, do you know that the three of us just broke through recently? Morongqi asked curiously, What realm? Mid-stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. So terrifying? Morongqi exclaimed, but he wanted to laugh in his mind. I'm already at the late-stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. He wasn't the only one. The Crimson Fox, and the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial, had also reached the late-stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Zhou Fan suddenly appeared and smiled. You dare to pretend in the mid-stage? I'm already at the perfected realm. Jiangyi snorted. What are you pretending for? Without the Great Tao Tower, whether you can attain the Tao is another matter. Zhou Fan said proudly. Then why don't you have a Great Tao Tower? Hee. There's nothing good about the Great Tao Tower. It can only defend, smash people and help with cultivation. More and more personal disciples entered the myriad worlds projection. Things became lively for a time. Feng Liang also appeared. The moment he saw Feng Liang, Morongqi immediately went up. The two of them had an extremely good relationship in the past, and it was the same now. They felt extremely close after not seeing each other for many years. They couldn't sense each other's aura in the myriad worlds projection, so they didn't know their cultivation. The brothers walked to the side and chatted. Guanbubi said proudly, You guys should hurry up and cultivate. Don't be left behind by us. Everyone looked at him. Morongqi glared at him and sent a voice transmission. Do you want to anger Grandmaster? This space was created by him. Your every move is in his eyes. Guanbubi was stunned. The Black Hell Chicken came over and asked, Are you cultivating quickly by following Master? Guanbubi muttered, It's all right. It's equivalent to having several great Tao towers. He did not understand what the great Tao tower was, but he couldn't stand Zhou Fan's posturing. His words infuriated Zhou Fan, but he was more surprised. For a time, the personal disciples were stirred by the conversation in the myriad worlds projection. In the dark forbidden zone, a huge palm quickly moved forward. The palm faced up, and white bones could be seen at the end. The 12 ancestral magi stood on the palm with hundreds of grand magi. The ancestral magi were Hutu Di Jiang Gomang, Zhurong Rushu Gonggong Xianming Changliang, Zhu Juyin, Tianwu Yinzi and Shibishi. They were formed from Panga's blood essence. Empress Huta looked at Di Jiang and asked, "Brother, are you sure Father's will is in the heavenly Tao?" Di Jiang said, "That should be right." Zhurong smiled. "We can revive Father once we find his will. At that time, our Magus race will dominate the chaos. Just thinking about it makes me excited." The other ancestral magi laughed, their faces filled with anticipation for a beautiful future. Huda said worriedly, "The current heavenly Tao is different from before. Don't act recklessly when you reach there. Although I have a relationship with Hanju, that's not enough for us to act recklessly." Chang Liang snorted, "What are you afraid of? Zhu Juyin has already become a great Tao sage. Hanju won't fall out with us directly even if he's not his match." Hanju had shocked them in the previous heavenly court battle, so they didn't dare to brag. Di Jiang smiled. "Don't worry, I know what to do. Besides, the heavenly Tao was created by Father. We don't plan to be enemies with the heavenly Tao." Hearing this, the worry on Huda's face eased. At this moment, a powerful aura attacked from ahead and blocked the huge palm. The 12 ancestral magi immediately became vigilant and prepared to fight. The blood essence of Pangu, the 12 ancestral magi, should have been Panga's orthodox lineage. However, after your father created the world, the heavenly Tao no longer belonged to you. You have become the sage's pawns. How ridiculous. A disdainful laugh sounded as a terrifying huge face appeared in the darkness ahead, smiling sinisterly. Its pupils were hundreds of times larger than a huge palm, as if a giant was staring down at a tiny ant. Di Jiang shouted in a low voice, "Who do you think you are? Do you want to block the way?" The disdainful laughter sounded again. "You have been suppressed by the heavenly Tao in the ancient desolate for countless years. Hudu has never been able to escape the cycle of reincarnation, and has been suppressed by the heavenly Tao sages. Now that she has finally established herself, do you still want to turn around and curry favor with the heavenly Tao? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Chapter 796 Old King of Hell, Welcoming Sacred Palace. Chapter 796 Old King of Hell, Welcoming Sacred Palace. Cut the crap. Do you want to die? The hot-tempered Zhurong roared, his roar resounding throughout the dark forbidden zone. Di Jiang directly transformed into his ancestral Magus true body. He was like a chaotic fiend celestial with a sinister and terrifying posture. One could sense the terrifying power contained in him, just by looking at his muscles. The mysterious face smiled and said, "Your enemy is not me. Didn't you go to the heavenly Tao to revive Pangu? Let's not talk about whether you can find it. Even if you find it and revive Pangu, what should you do with the relationship between the living beings of the heavenly Tao and Pangu? The heavenly Tao will belong to Pangu? Can the heavenly Tao's divine might heavenly sage tolerate it? Can Panga tolerate leaving the heavenly Tao?" His words were filled with mockery, mocking the ancestral magi for being simple-minded. Di Jiang asked, "Have you seen our father?" The mysterious face said, "Panga has died for so long, so I've naturally never seen him. Aren't you the same? Father's power is invincible. Please keep reading 0 in MYB0's novel. C0MO? You mean that if Panga revives, the divine might heavenly sage will not be his match?" Di Jiang did not say anything else. It wouldn't be good if these words spread to the heavenly Tao. The mysterious face smiled sinisterly and said, "Di Jiang, oh Di Jiang, the era is different. Pangu is no longer an invincible existence. Not to mention those ancient existences who survived the primordial chaos. Even the Tao ancestor has already surpassed Pangu. To you that will be a calamity. The most important thing for you now is to strengthen yourselves and not blindly pursue the power of your ancestors. Di Jiang frowned. These words made his heart waver. Indeed, Pango would definitely welcome the revenge of the chaotic fiend celestials if he did not revive at his peak. These chaotic fiend celestials had cultivated for countless years longer than him. They were both chaotic fiend celestials. Even if there was a difference in potential, it was not to the extent of great disparity. The mysterious face vanished, leaving behind a sentence. Join life at any time after you think it through. Life is an equal existence. It's all for the sake of overthrowing the chaos. If the Magus race is willing to help me, you will obtain a status like the heavenly Tao human race when the dark era descends. Everyone, you will be the new great Tao divine spirits. The ancestral magi looked at each other. So it was life. They naturally knew about life. Previously, they had even fought with life in the heavenly court. Great sage Void Soul's dark instincts made them all surrounded and beaten up by the 13 lives. They would probably be dead, if not for Hanju quickly ending it. In that case, life was still their enemy. Gonggong said in a low voice, "Brother, don't believe him. Who does he think he is? He insulted us and then threw us aside? Ridiculous." The other ancestral magi nodded in indignation. Di Jiang snorted, "I naturally don't believe him. Let's continue on our way to the heavenly Tao." The huge palm continued forward at a faster speed than before. Netherworld Yama Hall. Yang Tiandong supported his chin with one hand and yawned in boredom. A deafening boom came from outside the hall, shaking the Yama Hall. But Yang Tiandong did not panic at all. Soon, several ghost soldiers were kicked in and smashed into the wall behind Yang Tiandong. Immediately after, two figures with terrifying auras rushed in. "Ha ha ha, brother, this netherworld is nothing much. It can't stop us brothers at all." Brother Jizuan stopped dawdling. "Hurry up and capture the life and death book." It was Xia Jizuan and Qin Ling. Qin Ling's cultivation level had begun to increase exponentially ever since he had obtained the 99 Emperor Essence pills, attracting quite a bit of attention in the Divine Palace. Later he met Xia Jizuan by chance. The two of them became friends after a fight. Although Qin Ling was not Xia Jizuan's match, his stubbornness moved the latter. Then, the two of them became sworn brothers. This time, they had already broken through 18 Yama halls, but they still could not find the life and death book. Therefore they attacked Yang Tiandong's palace. Yang Tiandong was the great king of hell in the netherworld. He was above the 18 kings of hell. Only souls that contained great karma or extraordinary providence could enter his hall to be judged. Xia Jizuan stared at Yang Tiandong arrogantly and smiled. "Hey, King of Hell, hurry up and hand over the life and death book. The heavenly Tao is peaceful, and we don't want to kill. The ghost soldiers along the way were only injured, but we don't have that much patience." "Old man?" Yang Tiandong laughed angrily. He casually threw the life and death book in front of the two of them and said angrily, "What are you doing? Hurry up and get lost after you're done." Xia Jizuan and Qin Ling were stunned. This king of hell was arrogant, but his actions were very honest. Xia Jizuan was about to scold back when Qin Ling stopped him and said, "Hurry up. There are many mighty figures hidden in the netherworld. It won't end well if this matter blows up." Hearing this, Xia Jizuan glared at Yang Tiandong. Then, he opened the life and death book and started to quickly check. Yang Tiandong supported his chin with both hands and stared at him with a sigh. The last time Qin Ling came felt like yesterday. Time passed really quickly. Qin Ling felt his gaze and felt uncomfortable. He couldn't help but ask, "Why are you staring at me like that?" Yang Tiandong chuckled. "Nothing. I'm thinking about when we'll meet again." I won't come again. Don't worry." "Not necessarily. Some things are destined." "You mean I'll die?" I can't say. Qin Ling frowned. He felt inexplicably flustered by Yang Tiandong's words. At this moment, Xia Jizuan tore off a page from the life and death book and threw it back. He cursed, "Let's hurry up and leave. This old king of hell must be lonely. He wants you to come down and accompany him. Ignore him. A ghost god like him seems to be immortal and carefree, but he has lost the meaning of life." He quickly left with Qin Ling. Yang Tiandong's smile froze. Why was this dog so hurtful? Yang Tiandong began to deduce Xia Jizuan's identity and secretly noted it down. "Brat, just you wait. You will die in my hands sooner or later. Don't even think about reincarnating and training in the future. I'll let you be a pig or a dog, sinking into the cycle of reincarnation. Yang Tiandong cursed in his heart. He was extremely depressed. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju opened his eyes. He had been in seclusion for another 10,000 years. He wanted to continue cultivating, but Heavenly Venerate Xian Du informed him decades ago that the 12 ancestral magi had arrived. Sect Master Tian Ju established a Tao field in the dark forbidden zone outside the Heavenly Tao. It was called the Welcoming Sacred Palace. It was not far from the chaotic Heavenly Road, and was especially used to receive mighty guests from the chaos. The cultivation of the 12 ancestral magi was too strong, and they had revived in the chaos. Other than Empress Hutu, no one could enter the Heavenly Tao. Empress Hutu could only walk outside the netherworld and the 33rd heaven. She couldn't enter the immortal world or the myriad worlds. The Magus race had been waiting in the welcoming sacred palace for decades. They were very impatient. At this moment, Hanju came to the door of the sacred welcoming palace and stepped into the hall. The Magus race and sect master Tianju were both meditating and cultivating in the hall. At first, they didn't sense Hanju's aura, until a Grand Magus who wasn't cultivating caught a glimpse of him. "He's here," the Grand Magus said softly, startling the ancestral magi. Hanju, who was covered in treasures, had an oppressive aura. Anyone would feel inferior in front of him. Chapter 797 Divine Might Heavenly Sage's Aura. Chapter 797 Divine Might Heavenly Sage's Aura. How is that possible? I actually didn't sense his arrival. Di Jiang was shocked and vigilant. If Hanju could approach him without anyone noticing, didn't that mean that they would be insta-killed if he wanted to kill them? He would be severely injured even if he didn't die. Di Jiang would never forget the scene of Hanju fighting the Despair Tao spirit. He was even more domineering than the ancestral magi. Sect Master Tianju stood up and cupped his hands. Then he waved his sleeve, and a mat appeared beside him. Hanju sat down beside Sect Master Tianju and gestured for the ancestral magi to sit down. "Empress Hutu, long time no see." Hanju began to be polite to her. "Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M, he started with the familiar people and broke the silence. Empress Hutu smiled. "Indeed, it's been a long time. How many years has it been? Fellow Taoist Han is truly different from before. Your talent is probably one of the best among the chaotic fiend celestials." The other ancestral magi didn't say anything, but they still forced a smile at Hanju. It had to be said that although Hanju's appearance was not loud, it stunned the 12 ancestral magi. Hanju chatted with Empress Hutu for a while before asking about the Magus race's intentions. Empress Hutu looked at Di Jiang. He said seriously, "We want to send a portion of the Grand Magi into the Heavenly Tao to search for Father's will. We will leave once we find it. I know the rules, so we ancestral magi will wait here and not interfere with the Heavenly Tao." Di Jiang felt very uncomfortable saying this. They were once members of the Heavenly Tao. They should be returning home, but now they felt like guests. The Heavenly Tao was created by their father Pengu. Hanju asked, "Pengu's will? What is that?" "All his descendants." Di Jiang shook his head. "We won't touch father's descendants. As for his will, we're not sure for the time being. We still have to search." Hanju remained silent. He asked in his mind, "Is what Di Jiang said true? 200 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. It's true. What is Pengu's will?" 1 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. Pengu's will. A trace of intelligence left behind by Pengu when he created the world. It is sealed in the Heavenly Tao. Only someone with the cultivation of the Great Tao Supreme Realm can barely see through it." There was such a move. Could the Heavenly Tao spirit be Pengu's will? Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. For so many descendants of Pengu to appear in the Heavenly Tao, there must be a method left behind by Pengu. No matter what, the cultivation level of the Magus race was too low. It was impossible for them to sense Pengu's will. The ancestral magi's hearts sank upon seeing that Hanju didn't say anything. They thought that he was going to refuse. Sect Master Tianju revealed an intriguing expression. He was already very unhappy with the ancestral Magi's attitude. Thus, he felt good upon seeing Hanju suppress them. Weren't you very arrogant earlier? Why don't you dare to say anything now? The atmosphere became subtle. Hanju looked up and saw that the ancestral Magi were very nervous. He couldn't help but smile and say, "Of course. I was just thinking about what Panga's will might be, and wanted to reduce the trouble for you. However, I still don't understand after thinking about it. But it won't make sense if I directly reject you. You can arrange for the Grand Magi to go to the immortal world." The ancestral Magi were pleasantly surprised and thanked him. For a time, news of favorability increasing appeared in front of him. Hanju ignored the notifications and looked at Sect Master Tianju. "You should receive these fellow Taoists next." Sect Master Tianju nodded. Hanju immediately stood up and left. Empress Huda looked at his back and hesitated. The Grand Magi looked at Hanju in reverence. This was the first time they saw the 12 ancestral Magi so nervous. No wonder the heavenly Tao could quickly become stronger. Any world could quickly rise with such a supreme expert guarding it. After Hanju left the sacred palace, he returned to the 100-peak immortal river and continued cultivating. He believed that the ancestral Magi would not act recklessly. If they dared, Hanju would make them regret it. The current him was already qualified to be arrogant. However, he kept his arrogance in his heart and never expressed it in his words. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 50,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes. He looked over and discovered that the Magus race had already left. Clearly, the Grand Magi did not find Panga's will. Hanju didn't care about the ancestral Magi's mood when they left. It was fine as long as it didn't affect the heavenly Tao. He started checking his emails. Your disciple Tao Sovereign has entered the 3 pure sacred world. Your disciple Zhao Xianyuan. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. His soul was imprisoned. Your son Han Tua has fallen to the demonic path. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by your good friend Li Daokong. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was attacked by your good friend Shirdu Dao. Your good friend Ancestor Shitian was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Your good friend Di Jiang was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. So many attacks. Dao Sovereign and the other 2 followed Lao Dan. Hanju knew this and didn't find it strange. However, why were Ancestor Shitian Li Daokong and Shirdu Dao fighting with the Heavenly Court and the Great Dao Tower? Hanju had previously learned from Shirdu Dao as the Dark Forbidden Lord. Now, he and Li Daokong listened to Ancestor Shitian's orders. The 3 of them brought a large number of life servants and attacked everywhere to strengthen the life faction. Life's attacks looked savage, but they were actually targeting the helpless experts. The evil Heavenly Emperor seemed to have a wide network, but the chaos was almost infinite. The Heavenly Court was powerful, but their wars were only small battles in the chaos. Their only reliable ally was the Great Dao Tower. Thus, they were immediately implicated and beaten up together. Hanju thought for a moment and decided to visit Ancestor Shitian in his dreams. Ancestor Shitian had fallen into such a state because of his identity as the Dark Forbidden Lord. Hanju didn't dare to be sure if Ancestor Shitian really thought that he was the Dark Forbidden Lord. He still had a good impression of him. Before the calamity, in the entire Heavenly Tao, only Ancestor Shitian was worthy of Hanju's identity as an expert. The Dark Nightmare was successfully used. Hanju used his true body to meet Ancestor Shitian. The dream was the Great Ultimate Hall from back then. Ancestor Shitian opened his eyes and looked at the huge bright hall in a daze. The Great Ultimate Hall was very lively every time it opened. The Tao Seekers sat in the hall and looked at him with admiration. Thousands of listeners disappeared, leaving only one person. Hanju. Ancestor Shitian looked at him. Both of them had calm expressions. Hanju cupped his hands and bowed. The Tao of Karma that the ancestor taught more than 1,000,000 years ago has benefited me greatly. Ancestor Shitian shook his head slightly and smiled. You're still so cautious. No matter what your cultivation level is, you haven't cultivated the Tao of Karma at all. How can you benefit from it? Hanju was only being polite. He suddenly didn't know how to reply after hearing Ancestor Shitian's words. Chapter 798 Ancestors Challenge. Chapter 798 Ancestors Challenge. Are you here for the Heavenly Court and the Great Tao Tower? Ancestor Shitian asked. His tone was casual, as if he was chatting with an old friend. Hanju said, That's right. Life abducted the Heavenly Tao sages one after another and now, he attacked the Heavenly Emperor and my disciple. I can't sit by and watch. Ancestor Shitian narrowed his eyes and asked, So you're here to warn me? Hanju shook his head. How can I dare to warn you? I'm just puzzled. Ancestor, why did you enter life? Ancestor Shitian said, Because there's no place for me in the chaos. Hanju asked, Then why can life tolerate you? This question had many meanings. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M Hanju was very puzzled. Wasn't life also threatening the chaos? Why didn't the chaotic deities interfere? Would the chaotic deities let Ancestor Shitian go once life took him in? Could it be that the chaotic deities were behind life? However, he had calculated before that the first life Black Sovereign had no backing. Ancestor Shitian stared at Hanju with a deep gaze, as if he could see through him. Hanju understood calmly. Now that even the chaotic deities could not attack his Tao field, he was really not too afraid. However, it was naturally a good thing to reduce some trouble. Ancestor Shitian said faintly, Perhaps this is a trap. Life is in it and doesn't know. I took advantage of the situation and lived. At least, there was an additional chance of survival. Hanju heard a hint of sorrow. It was a pity. If not for the system and the Tao field, he would have to face such a tragic scene. Hanju hesitated for a moment and said, If you don't mind, I'm willing to protect you as long as you're willing to come. Ha ha ha, Ancestor Shitian suddenly laughed. His laughter was filled with disdain. Hanju showed a frown. After Ancestor Shitian finished laughing, he shook his head and said, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this. I've presided over the Heavenly Tao for billions of years, and preached the Tao to countless Tao seekers. Now, I'm being pitted by a junior who once asked me for guidance. How tragic and unfortunate is this? However, it's worth it to have one person dare to take me in. I didn't preach the Tao for nothing. He suddenly stared at him, and his eyes became sharp. Hanju, if you want to save the Heavenly Emperor and Zhoufan, then come. Defeat me openly, and I'll let them go. Ancestor Shitian's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability. 5 stars as he declared war. His favorability increased? Hanju was confused. Ancestor Shitian said meaningfully, Come. If you come, it won't only be for the Heavenly Emperor, but also for your disciple and yourself. You look powerful now, but you can't see everything clearly. Hanju frowned. Was he hinting at the chaotic deities? Would he be considered to have cut ties with him if he went to fight Ancestor Shitian? By the way, let me remind you. Previously, I only left a clone in the Heavenly Tao. I've been suppressing my cultivation. You have to use your full strength if you want to fight me. Ancestor Shitian smiled as the dream shattered. Hanju opened his eyes. The ancestor could actually forcefully break through his dark nightmare. He checked Ancestor Shitian's portrait and discovered that his cultivation level was still at the mid-stage Great Tao Primordial Chaos realm. Could this be a disguise? Hanju asked in his mind. If Ancestor Shitian uses his full strength, can I insta-kill him? 300 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? It was comparable to the foolish sword sage. Not bad. Continue. Yes, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. No, not stable enough. If Ancestor Shitian uses his full strength, can he insta-kill me? No, Hanju completely relaxed. The core of the two questions was about Ancestor Shitian's true strength, so his lifespan was not deducted the second time. He hesitated. Should he go? If I go and stop Ancestor Shitian, will I be attacked by the chaotic deities and the Great Tao Supreme? Hanju asked in his mind. It would have been fine if it was in the past. Now he was a little angry at Ancestor Shitian's unclear words. A quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju was completely relieved. At the same time, he despised the first life Black Sovereign. This fellow was hiding in the dark. He didn't dare to show himself, even when his subordinates were killed. Hanju looked at the chaos, and quickly found the battlefield where the Heavenly Court, the Great Tao Tower, and life were fighting. The universe where the Great Tao Tower was located was in chaos. The immortals of the Heavenly Court, and the cultivators of the Great Tao Tower, were fighting countless life servants. The life servants came from various races, but they all had a common characteristic: a strange black aura surrounded them. There were even black patterns on their bodies, as if they were ferocious beasts that had fallen into the darkness. The number of life servants was not less than the number of living beings in the Heavenly Court and the Great Tao Tower. In fact, there were even more. Li Daokong was fighting Zhou Fan. The two were on par. Shi Dudao fought the evil Heavenly Emperor, but he was suppressed. As for Ancestor Shitian, he was above the entire battlefield. He sat in the void and kept casting spells with both hands. His vast dermic powers transformed into huge chains that trapped a terrifying black shadow. The inauspicious Divine Emperor. Hanju was curious. What was the relationship between the evil Heavenly Emperor and the inauspicious Divine Emperor? Why did he always help him? Could it be the evil Heavenly Emperor's father? However, the inauspicious evil was not a living being. How could it have children? The inauspicious Divine Emperor was clearly not Ancestor Shitian's match. Ancestor Shitian did not kill him either, as if he was waiting for someone. Hanju knew that Ancestor Shitian was waiting for him. Clearly, if Ancestor Shitian was serious, this battle would have ended long ago. It wouldn't have lasted so long. Ancestor Shitian was forcing him to appear. Li Daokong slashed at the Great Tao Tower, causing a violent sound wave that shook the void. Zhou Fan held the Great Tao Tower and cursed, "Li Daokong, you're fucking ruthless. Can you act well?" Li Daokong shook his sword and tilted his head to look at him with a smile. "Didn't you brag about your Great Tao Tower? I want to see if your Great Tao Tower can block my sword Dao." On the other side, Shi Dudao was even more furious. The evil Heavenly Emperor did not use a supreme treasure and entirely relied on his great dermic powers to suppress him, making him very aggrieved. The evil Heavenly Emperor ignored Shi Dudao's anger and focused on Ancestor Shitian. "Ancestor, what are you waiting for?" The evil Heavenly Emperor thought to himself. He could sense that Ancestor Shitian was only acting, so he did not dare to rashly kill Shi Dudao. His greatest trump card, the inauspicious Divine Emperor, was not Ancestor Shitian's match. He had no chance of winning. He was puzzled, but he couldn't ask directly. The soldier's morale would take a blow once he did. Roar! The inauspicious Divine Emperor roared again. He suddenly dispersed, and Ancestor Shitian's dermic powers chain missed. Immediately after, a black shadow appeared behind Ancestor Shitian. It was the inauspicious Divine Emperor. The inauspicious Divine Emperor transformed into darkness and drowned Ancestor Shitian. The darkness shattered like a glass ball. Ancestor Shitian appeared and raised his right hand, causing a golden river to appear. Ancestor Shitian muttered a strange sound, causing the golden river to emit a strong light and suck all the surrounding dark fragments into the river. Chapter 799 Unfathomable. Chapter 799 Unfathomable. After Ancestor Shitian sealed the inauspicious Divine Emperor in the golden river in his palm, he continued to cast spells with his left hand. Seal struck the golden river in his right hand, looking dazzling. The evil Heavenly Emperor widened his eyes. Impossible! The inauspicious Divine Emperor was in existence compared to a great Tao sage. Why was he helpless in front of Ancestor Shitian? Wasn't Ancestor Shitian also a great Tao sage? The evil Heavenly Emperor suddenly felt that Ancestor Shitian was so unfamiliar. The previous ancestor had hidden his cultivation in the Heavenly Tao. The evil Heavenly Emperor couldn't figure it out, but he understood that the situation was becoming worse. The inauspicious Divine Emperor was sealed. No one was restraining Ancestor Shitian. Would he stop waiting and start a massacre? Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M at this moment. The evil Heavenly Emperor suddenly thought of Hanju. Should he ask him for help? The strongest existence he could think of now was Hanju. Even the great Tao concealment fiend Celestial couldn't compare. At this moment, Ancestor Shitian suddenly turned to look into the darkness. The evil heavenly emperor, who had been staring at him, couldn't help but look over. There was nothing in the darkness. The evil heavenly emperor couldn't sense any reinforcements. Li Daokong used the 10,000 life sword. Countless injuries, equipment, and meteors transformed into sword shadows that faced Zhou Fan. Zhou Fan, do you want to beg for mercy? Li Daokong asked teasingly. Zhou Fan flew into a rage out of humiliation and cursed. What? You still want to kill me? Li Daokong smiled. How is that possible? We are old friends after all. However, you see the situation. He was in a good mood. Not only did he bully Zhou Fan, but more importantly, he saw Shi Dudao being beaten. Shi Dudao was beaten, while he had the upper hand. Compared to the two, he was even more powerful. How could he not be happy? Outside the heavenly Dao, Hanju appeared on the chaotic heavenly road. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. He looked at the dark forbidden zone, and slowly raised his right hand. Ancestor, you want to fight? Unfortunately, I'm not going easy on you. I should distance myself from you to prevent me from insta-killing you. The shadows of fiend celestials appeared above Hanju's head, and entered his body. Dharma Idol Fusion Technique. After fusing about 50 Dharma Idols, Hanju stretched out his index finger, and condensed the primordial divine rage. Then, he shot out the heaven-earth mystic yellow world-piercing sword finger. Boom! A terrifying sword chi tore through the darkness, drawing an endless white line that stretched into the depths of the chaos. Hanju turned around. Pan Xian and Sect Master Tianju appeared in front of him. Pan Xian asked nervously, "Are there enemies?" Sect Master Tianju was also extremely nervous. To be able to force Hanju to attack personally, the other party was definitely very strong. He was at least a great Dao sage. Hanju smiled. There are no powerful enemies. Someone just challenged me in the Great Dao Tower. Great Dao Tower? Pan Xian and Sect Master Tianju were stunned. They looked at each other, and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. The Great Dao Tower was very far from the heavenly Dao. Even a freedom sage could not arrive in a short period of time. Hanju attacked from so far away. They couldn't imagine how high his cultivation was. Hanju disappeared, and returned to the Taoist temple. He sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus, and continued cultivating. Great Dao Tower Domain. The high and mighty ancestor Shitian suddenly said, "Stop." In an instant, all the life servants stopped fighting and looked up at him. Li Daokong and Shi Dudao also stopped. The immortals and cultivators of the Great Dao Tower hurriedly retreated and caught their breaths. All the living beings looked up at Ancestor Shitian, like ants looking at the sky. The evil heavenly emperor frowned and felt inexplicably uneasy. What was Ancestor Shitian trying to do? At this moment, all the living beings felt an extremely terrifying pressure descend, causing their souls to tremble, including the evil heavenly emperor, Shi Dudao, Li Daokong and Zhou Fan. A sense of fear and insignificance when facing absolute power enveloped them. They subconsciously turned around. Before their gazes could reach him, a sword chi illuminated the void and collided with Ancestor Shitian, with an unstoppable force. Shocking. It shook space and time. Ancestor Shitian immediately blocked with both palms, and used all his dermic powers. Seals collided with the dermic powers in his palm at an extremely fast speed, instantly forming a huge golden compass that blocked Hanju's sword chi. In less than a trillionth of a second, the golden compass that was as huge as a bright sun was shattered by the sword chi. Ancestor Shitian's eyes widened as his white hair was blown back. Sword light flashed in the eyes of all living beings. Even their sage sense was isolated. After the sword light dissipated, the evil heavenly emperor was the first to look up. The sword chi dissipated, and a huge hole appeared in the darkness. The dark purple alternate spacetime was like a cosmic beast opening its bloody mouth. It was terrifying. Ancestor Shitian floated in the air. His hair was disheveled and his back was hunched. His head was lowered, but his slightly floating back proved that he was still alive. Soon, all the living beings regained their senses. They looked up and gasped when they saw Ancestor Shitian's state. Especially the life servants, they were terrified. Zhou Fan and the evil heavenly emperor looked at each other. They guessed the truth. Hanju made his move. Ancestor Shitian's weak voice sounded, "Retreat." He stood up and walked into the darkness. Li Daokong smiled at Zhou Fan and said, "If we fight again, be careful that I won't snatch your great Dao Tower. Stop pretending in the future." Humph. Zhou Fan was very unhappy, but he had nothing to say. Shi Dudao looked at the evil heavenly emperor deeply, leading countless servants to chase after Ancestor Shitian. The evil heavenly emperor and Zhou Fan did not order a pursuit. No one noticed that the corners of Ancestor Shitian's mouth curled up slightly. He sighed and said in a voice that only he could hear, "The younger generation has surpassed us." Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju was a little surprised. Although he had held back, he didn't expect Ancestor Shitian to still be able to protect his body. It seemed that the ancestor had a supreme treasure. However, it was fine. Hanju had only fused with 50 Dharma idols. Even 10 Ancestor Shitian would be destroyed in body and soul if he fused with the power of more than 1,000 Dharma idols. Ancestor Shitian's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 6 stars. A notification suddenly appeared in front of him, making Hanju speechless. No matter what, the crisis of the heavenly court and the great Dao Tower was resolved. Hanju thought of how Chu Shuren had also encountered something, and his soul was imprisoned. He sent him a dream. In the dream, he was under the Fusang tree. Perhaps because he was affected by the evil heavenly emperor, Hanju always had some feelings when he visited. Chu Shuren opened his eyes and hurriedly knelt down when he saw it was him. Hanju asked, "Is there trouble?" Chu Shuren was stunned. He hesitated for a moment and nodded slightly. "Why don't you use the invocation technique? I don't want to trouble Grandmaster about my grand disciple's matter. I will naturally look for you if an existence with high seniority crosses the line. However, the other party is only a freedom sage. I think it'd be bullying if I asked for your help." Chu Shuren spoke very seriously. Hanju wanted to laugh. He said, "Then aren't you afraid of death?" Chu Shuren said, "No, I still want to subdue him and make him the Buddha world's Buddha." Hanju asked, "What makes you so arrogant?" Chapter 800 Creating a Legend. Chapter 800 Creating a Legend. I'm not arrogant. I want to use great kindness to reform him. Chu Shuren said firmly. It had to be said that after establishing the Buddhist world, he became more and more like Buddha. When he said such righteous words, he was dazzling and made people want to trust him. Hanju said, "Don't go overboard." Chu Shuren said, "Don't worry, Grandmaster. When the hidden sect unifies the chaos, my Buddhist world will bring peace to the hidden sect." "What nonsense are you saying? When will the hidden sect unite the chaos?" "I'm wrong. The heavenly Tao will unite the chaos. The heavenly Tao will not unite the chaos. It only wants to protect itself, understand?" Hanju said seriously. He felt that Chu Shuren was thinking wrongly. Chu Shuren hurriedly apologized. Yes, protect yourself." He sighed. Grandmaster was still the most shameless. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M. The development of the heavenly Tao was not about self-preservation. It was clearly ambitious. However, this was the true goal. He was lying through his teeth. Hanju chatted with Chu Shuren for a while more before removing the dream. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju felt despair at the prosperity of the 100-peak immortal river, and suddenly felt so unfamiliar. It looked lively, but he felt lonely. His disciples had all grown up and no longer relied on him. In the past, Hanju was afraid that the disciples would cause trouble for him. Now that he had finally become stronger, the disciples were afraid of causing trouble for him. Even if their bodies were destroyed, they gritted their teeth and endured. "You're not sensible. Your master finally became stronger and has a high cultivation level. But you actually didn't give me a chance to show off." Hanju sighed, then restrained his emotions and continued cultivating. He was indeed powerful, but he was not invincible. 10,000 divine authority generals were his greatest enemy now. Perhaps the Tao field could block them, but that would be a huge matter. The entire chaos would definitely pay attention to his Tao field, and his disciples outside would not be safe. Outside the 33rd heaven, in the universal hall, the sages gathered. The sages gathered around Pan Xian. He was flattering Hanju. Please keep reading on Wuxia world. EU to attack from the heavenly Tao and kill the enemies of the great Tao tower from afar. Can you really do it? Yang Che couldn't help but ask. He had also been to the great Tao tower. He was still a pseudo-sage at that time, and had spent more than 20,000 years on the trip. It was obvious how far the heavenly Tao was from the great Tao tower. The heavenly Tao was already vast enough. It contained billions of universes and countless spacetime. Every mortal world could evolve into a great universe and produce countless galaxies. The thought that a sage could cover the heavenly Tao. This was what was called omnipotent in the eyes of all living beings. However, the chaos was endless. Even sages could only spy on a small portion. Hanju's performance was unbelievable. Pan Xian glared at Yang Che and said, "Of course. Fellow Taoist Han is a great Tao sage. You are only primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortals, with the freedom sage realm above you. How can you imagine how powerful a great Tao sage is? Furthermore, fellow Taoist Han is almost invincible among the great Tao sages." Koli Taiga nodded excitedly. That's right. I even feel that Senior Han is already the strongest existence, just like the Tao ancestor in the past. Therefore, the heavenly Tao did not encounter any more enemies. Many chaotic worlds are even fawning over the heavenly Tao. Isn't this because of Senior Han's powerful strength? Zhang Guxing stroked his beard and sighed in his heart. The timid youth from back then had actually grown up to become a supreme existence that the entire chaos respected. He found it unbelievable when he thought about it. This was even more exaggerated than any legend. The sages discussed with greater enthusiasm. At this moment, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du appeared. The sages sat back down. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du scanned the surroundings and said, I just learned that the Heavenly Court and the Great Tao Tower were attacked by the Life faction led by Ancestor Shitian, Shi Du Dao, and Li Daokong. Fortunately, the Heavenly Tao Divine Might Heavenly Sage took action and almost killed Ancestor Shitian with a single strike. The Life faction was defeated. This battle caused the Heavenly Tao to shake the chaos. The Life factions near the Heavenly Tao retreated and are no longer probing for information about the Heavenly Tao. The sages were in an uproar. Pan Xian was smug. You still don't believe me? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du smiled and said, This battle has once again made the Heavenly Tao famous. This is not the first time fellow Taoist Han has severely injured the Life faction. The name of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage will definitely spread even wider in the future. The Heavenly Tao will also benefit from this. I brought all of you here this time to spread some legends about the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. This time my goal is the chaos. In any case, the grudge between the Heavenly Tao and the Life faction is already irreconcilable. There's no need to be wary. We can turn the Divine Might Heavenly Sage into a guardian of the chaotic order. The Life faction will definitely lose at the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's feet. The old sages nodded, while the new sages felt strange. So those legends were deliberately spread by sages? Yang Che felt that the faces of the sages were so ugly, but he felt very good when he participated. This feeling of dominating all living beings was too wonderful. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du began to talk about the various battle achievements of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. It was very exciting, as if it was all true. Fong Liang and Su Qi had strange expressions. If they didn't know Han Ju's personality, they would have thought that it was true. After a long time, the sages noted it down after Heavenly Venerate Xian Du finished speaking. I called you here today because of something else. The Divine Robe Taoist told me that he wants to give the Heavenly Tao an opportunity. It's a chaotic sea of fire. This sea of fire is extraordinary and contains the Qi of creation. It can be used to forge supreme treasures. The Heavenly Tao will attract countless chaotic cultivators to create Dharma treasures if we can control this sea. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said slowly. Su Du Dao clapped his hands and said, This is a good thing. But can we believe the Divine Robe Taoist? Doesn't he want such an opportunity for himself? Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, The great Tao Divine Spirits can't directly control creation, or it will be considered crossing the line. However, it will definitely benefit him if he controls the Heavenly Tao. It's equivalent to indirectly belonging to him. The sages fell into deep thought. Heavenly Venerate Wufa said, "You can agree. Although the heavenly Tao is willing to accept chaotic living beings, we will only accept those who are in trouble. If you want to attract geniuses or mighty figures, you have to have something that truly tempts them. It can't just be the right to stay in the heavenly Tao." The other sages nodded, but they were still worried about the divine robe Taoist. After all, he was once an enemy. "Leave this matter to me. I have a better chance of escaping than you even if the divine robe Taoist has a plan." Pan Xian said. He really knew how to take advantage of the situation. The sages cursed silently, but they did not dare to snatch this opportunity. It was indeed too dangerous. The heavenly Tao sages' immortality was only in the heavenly Tao. Most of the time, they would not leave the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "That's settled." Seeing Heavenly Venerate Wufa speak, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du felt at ease. They were all family. Why should they suspect each other? Of course, he did not dare to say this, because he didn't know what method Han Ju used to make the enemy willing to be his slave. This method was definitely not simple. Once he was exposed, he would definitely offend Han Ju. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du had always been careful around Han Ju. The two of them seemed to have a good relationship, but Heavenly Venerate Xian Du never dared to relax. Chapter 801 Talking to Myself. Chapter 801 Talking to Myself. 10,000 years passed. Han Ju opened his eyes and looked at the Great Tao Tower first. After so many years, the Great Tao Tower regained its peace and prosperity. Zhou Fan was still cultivating in the tower. Compared to 10,000 years ago, the number of living beings in the Great Tao Tower had doubled. Han Ju counted with his fingers and couldn't help but smile. It turned out that the news of him defeating Ancestor Shitian had already spread. Many living beings who hated or were afraid of life felt that the Great Tao Tower could protect them, and went there. It was not only the Great Tao Tower. The Heavenly Tao and the Heavenly Court were also affected. However, the Heavenly Court had a very high threshold for the heavenly troops. They would not accept ordinary living beings. Unlike the Great Tao Tower, the Heavenly Court was more like an army. Han Ju's gaze landed on the Heavenly Court. After the Heavenly Court gained a reputation from life, the number of immortals increased greatly. It had to be said that the evil Heavenly Emperor was still very good at using his reputation and power. Han Ju was no longer worried upon seeing that the Heavenly Court and the Great Tao Tower were fine. He looked at Chu Shuren's Buddhist world. Please keep reading 0NMYB0XN0VL. See 0M next. The Buddhist world had used a special array formation and was actually hidden in deep space-time. Only Great Tao sages and existences above could spy on it. Han Ju noticed an aura of freedom in the Buddhist world. Chu Shuren had really succeeded? He checked his profile picture. The portrait was still there, which meant that he had not been possessed. The favorability had not changed, which meant that he had not been brainwashed. Everything was normal. Chu Shuren was interesting. Han Ju began to look forward to what he would do in the future. Then, Han Ju sent a dream to Li Daokong and asked about his recent situation. Although Li Daokong was very loyal, there was a possibility that something would happen if he was left alone. Li Daokong might be experiencing torture and struggling when Han Ju was still cultivating. In the dream, Li Daokong was indeed very excited and happy to see him. Li Daokong and the other two suffered immense pressure in the Life faction after the defeat with the Great Tao Tower. Li Daokong and Shi Dudao were very aggrieved, but they had no choice. After becoming Life, he could barely escape the fate of the Calamity Life controller. This was also the first time Li Daokong had experienced the torture of the Calamity Life controller. It was truly a fate worse than death. Han Ju asked, "I can save you and help you eliminate the Calamity Life controller's karma if you can't take it." Li Daokong was stunned and pleasantly surprised. He had felt despair when he understood the true terror of a Calamity Life controller. He didn't expect Han Ju to help him resolve it. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. He believed that Han Ju was not bragging. After all, so many lives had been lost in his hands. He hesitated for a moment and gritted his teeth. "It's fine, Sect Master. I can still tolerate it. Furthermore, My cultivation speed has indeed far exceeded before by relying on my identity as a calamity life controller. This is also my opportunity. Hanju said. Don't feel burdened. Use the invocation technique to summon me at any time, once you can't hold on. Understand? Li Daokong nodded. I understand. Thank you for your concern, Sect Master. The two of them chatted for a while more before ending the dream. Hanju sent a dream to Sherdudao next. This time, he used the image of the Dark Forbidden Lord. Sherdudao was also suffering. He was tortured by the Calamity Life Controller's fate. He wanted to show his cards several times, but he was afraid that he would appear weak and be looked down on by the Dark Forbidden Lord. His dissatisfaction instantly dissipated upon seeing the Dark Forbidden Lord. He secretly admired him. The Dark Forbidden Lord appeared when he was about to collapse. Wasn't it to give him hope and motivation? Sherdudao was still convinced even though he knew that this was a method. At the very least, it meant that the Dark Forbidden Lord really cared about him, and he was not a pawn that could be abandoned at any time. Hanju said bluntly, I can help you escape and find a place to cultivate in peace if you can't take it. Sherdudao asked, Then can I still follow you? Yes, but it's another form of following. Sherdudao understood. The other was to rear him and wait for the opportunity when he was needed. He didn't want this. Hanju said meaningfully, Sherdudao, in my opinion, your talent is the strongest. You didn't lose the battle against the evil Heavenly Emperor. After all, there's a difference in cultivation. Your talent continues to be released as your cultivation realm increases. One day, you will become an existence even more dazzling than the great Tao Divine Spirit. However, every supreme expert has to experience pain and despair before they can continue to grow and climb higher. Sherdudao nodded. He also believed this. However, the Dark Forbidden Lord said that he was the most talented. This made him very excited. He indeed thought so before leaving the Heavenly Tao. However, he had seen too many geniuses after wandering in the chaos for so long. He had thought that he was very mediocre, especially after being crushed by the evil Heavenly Emperor. He doubted himself even more. Usually, there was Li Daokong, this dog, beside him. If it were anyone else, they would also be easily heartbroken. Sherdudao suppressed his excitement and asked, Really? Hanju said, I have no need to lie to you. Your talent is not determined by my mouth. If there is a talent stronger than you, why don't I look for him? Sherdudao felt that it made sense. In that case, I'll continue to hide in life. I want to be your most capable war god. Sherdudao said proudly, and regained his previous conceit. Hanju smiled in satisfaction. The dream ended an hour later. Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. He smiled in satisfaction. He was still very talented in bluffing. Hanju started to check his emails next. In the Taoist temple next door, Xing Hongxian was meditating on the bed when she suddenly frowned. Her consciousness entered a dream. After a while, she opened her eyes and she discovered that she was standing beside a lake. Immortal qi surrounded her, and the scenery was beautiful. Dream. Xing Hongxian frowned. She was already a primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal. How could she be dreaming? She subconsciously touched her abdomen. She had always felt something unfathomable ever since she got pregnant. She knew that her son was not simple. She was also worried that her son would attract danger. But she had no choice but to endure. Suddenly realizing that she couldn't leave the dream, she began to observe her surroundings. Clouds surrounded her, preventing her from seeing where she was. At this moment, a figure walked towards her on the lake. Soon, the figure walked out of the clouds and revealed her true body. Xing Hongxian was stunned. The other party looked identical to her, but her temperament was more extraordinary. Xing Hongxian wore white and stood on the lotus throne. The sun and moon floated behind her and surrounded her like gods. Xing Hongxian stared at her and sized her up carefully. The other party slowly said, Don't let your son be born. He will attract unprecedented trouble. Even your husband can't stop him. Xing Hongxian frowned. She seemed to have thought of something and asked, Are you the future me? The other party said slowly, There's no future or past. I'm just talking to myself. You have to choose between your son and your husband. Chapter 802 The Only Existence. Chapter 802 The Only Existence. What kind of trouble? Xing Hongxian frowned. Although she valued Hanju the most, her son had accompanied her for so many years and helped her cultivate. She had yet to repay her son. And the other party wanted to think of a way to get rid of him? Impossible, the other party said. His birth will bring calamity to the entire chaos. He will become the enemy of the entire chaos. Even your husband will be his enemy. Those ancient and unknown existences will attack one after another, sealing karma and space. The reason why I can visit you in your dreams is that I paid a costly price. Xing Hongxian fell silent. The other party continued. Besides, you can't guarantee if the child you give birth to is good or bad. You can already sense his talent. Can you really control him if he's evil? He can make you stronger, so he's naturally stronger. He was born with the strongest power. He was born to be a calamity. He shouldn't have been born. Your husband didn't want him at first. You insisted on having him. Don't think it's cruel. You have to end the karma you started. With that said, the entire world began to twist and become blurry. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn0VL. C0M Xing Hongxian opened her eyes after waking up. She had a complicated expression. The heavy mission and karma were suffocating her. She touched her abdomen with a pained expression. Was it really because of her willfulness? She suddenly thought of something and felt relieved. What am I conflicted about? It's all thanks to you that I can be where I am today. This child's talent is not inherited from me but from you. I shouldn't be worried about this but tell you instead. Xing Hongxian muttered to herself, and stood up to visit Hanju. Hanju was still checking his emails and thinking about some interesting ones when he sensed Xing Hongxuan's aura, and immediately opened the door to the Taoist temple to let her in. Xing Hongxian sat down beside Hanju and told him about the dream. Hanju was not surprised. He already knew about this. However, he was very satisfied with Xing Hongxuan's performance. You did well. You have to tell me if you don't understand something. Don't deal with it yourself. Hanju pulled Xing Hongxuan's hand and patted the back of it with a satisfied smile. It would be troublesome if Xing Hongxian couldn't figure it out and killed her son, or went to the extreme, wanting to lead her son to escape and cause a series of consequences. Xing Hongxian giggled. Perhaps this is a trap to mess with my heart and tie you down? Hanju said. I'll calculate it. Maintain your previous state for the time being. Cultivate when you need to. You have to continue cultivating after attaining the primordial chaos Tao fruit. Understand? Xing Hongxian nodded and left several hours later. She heaved a sigh of relief. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju began to use the derivation function. Xing Hongxuan's dream really met her future self. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. It's indeed the future her. The future her was worth 500 billion years? Hanju continued to ask. Is the future her telling the truth or a conspiracy? 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. It involves the supreme rule and cannot be directly deduced. Hanju showed a frown. In other words, he couldn't be sure if the other party was telling the truth. It might be caused by the enemy's bewitchment. This was a warning. The enemy could also use the future to attack the past. It seemed that he had to calculate the future. I want to know what will happen after the great Tao immeasurable calamity ends. I'll just watch the outcome, alright? Actually, he knew very well that he would change the future every time he looked at it. However, it did not mean that predicting the future was useless. At least, it could allow him to avoid many troubles. For example, the evil heavenly emperor. If not for Hanju's frequent interference, his body and soul would have been destroyed more than 1,000,000 years ago. 5 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? So much. Continue. Hanju entered the illusion. The long-awaited dizziness appeared. Hanju opened his eyes, and his consciousness quickly became clear. What reflected in his eyes was the primordial void. Purple light filled the air, and wisps of chaotic chi interwove in the void like lightning, desolate and empty. Everything turned into nothingness. Hanju frowned. What was going on? Space suddenly shrank and became dazzling. he suddenly saw a figure. The figure sat on a stone chair. This stone chair was strange and sinister. Several heads were embedded in the top. Hanju had seen one of the heads in the Grand Primordium domain. It was one of the chaotic fiend celestials. Hanju narrowed his eyes and discovered that this figure was not him. Who was this? The person on the stone chair wore a black patterned purple robe. His hair was disheveled, and his body emitted an extremely terrifying aura. He had an extremely handsome face, but his eyes were cold, and there was a cruel smile on his lips. Who was this fellow? Hanju didn't have the slightest idea who he was. He only felt that the other party looked familiar, like Han Tua and Han Yu. Could it be his unborn son? The purple-robed figure raised his hands with a fascinated expression and muttered, "All of this belongs to me. No one can stop me anymore. I am the only primordial fiend celestial, and the only existence. I create everything. I will be a primordial deity, the supreme existence." Hanju had a strange expression. It was really his son. What did he mean by the only existence? Don't tell me you killed me too? At this moment the dream shattered. Hanju's consciousness returned to reality. He began to think. If it was his youngest son, he had to throw him into the primordial heavenly prison before he grew up to prevent this fellow from killing him. But on second thought, he felt that something was wrong. He could hide in the Dao field, even if he couldn't defeat his son in the future. Perhaps he would fake his death. Hanju didn't use the derivation function again. All of this was still too far away. He couldn't jump to conclusions. The primordial fiend celestial would successfully overturn the chaos if the situation did not change. Perhaps it was because of the Dao field that his son could grow to an invincible stage. The future he just saw might indeed happen as long as his son did not leave the Dao field. Therefore, I have to cultivate diligently and not slack off. They are all primordial fiend celestials. Only if I give up cultivating will I be caught up by another primordial fiend celestial. Hanju's eyes became firm. Cultivate. He closed his eyes and entered his cultivation state. In the dark space, boundless chaotic chi filled the air like mist. Etion, and a figure stood beside a lake. The surface of the lake was murky and kept stirring. He turned to look at the figure beside him and asked, "Devil Ancestor, why isn't he out yet?" The Devil Ancestor was like a completely different person from before. He already had the appearance of a human. He wore a long black robe, and his sleeves and clothes were tattered like black flames. His face was pale, and his facial features were angular. There were 3 vertical patterns between his eyebrows, and his black hair was as long as his robe. He looked like a nightmare, terrifying. Chapter 803 Devouring a Chaotic Fiend Celestial. Chapter 803 Devouring a Chaotic Fiend Celestial. What's the hurry? He's a chaotic fiend celestial to begin with. It naturally needs time to fuse with my demonic path power. I can sense that his aura is rapidly becoming stronger. He's no longer inferior to a freedom sage, Devil Ancestor Lu Yuan said softly. His tone was calm, but there was a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Etion scratched his head and asked, "When will it be my turn?" Lu Yuan glanced at him and snorted. "You're not as tenacious as him. You can't withstand the pain." "I don't like what you're saying. I'm his big brother after all. I'm better than him in all aspects." Hee. Etion curled his lips unhappily upon seeing that the Devil Ancestor Lu Yuan did not believe him. Unknowingly, he was like Han Tuo's younger brother now. There were still waves on the surface of the lake, and he could not see the situation at the bottom. After a long time, please keep reading 0, in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M. The Devil Ancestor Lu Yuan left and disappeared into the fog. Etion meditated by the lake and waited patiently. After a certain period of time, boom, the surface of the lake suddenly exploded. Etion opened his eyes and saw that a figure had already appeared in front of him, occupying his entire vision. Han Tua. He was naked, and his figure was as burly as the ancestral magus. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and his muscles were like dragons and snakes. As he moved, he was filled with the beauty of explosive power. Etion was stunned and remained silent. Han Tuo's handsome face also became more domineering, and his eyes turned green. He sized up his body and smiled. He raised his hand and clenched his fingers into a fist. The surrounding space twisted as if even space was grabbed into his palm. Etienne stood up and asked, "How do you feel?" Han Tuo smiled. "Very good. Unprecedentedly good. The power of the devils is stronger than I imagined. I feel unprecedentedly relaxed." Etienne asked, "Does the process hurt? What do you think of me? Can I withstand it?" "Nonsense. The two of us will advance and retreat together. I have to force you in even if you're afraid." Han Tuo snorted. His words pleased him. Etienne was most afraid that Han Tuo would begin to pity him. That meant that the difference between the two had already reached a point where he couldn't catch up to. "Then I'll go down now. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. You hurry up. I'm still waiting to fight you." "All right." Plop. Etienne jumped into the lake and disappeared. Han Tuo crossed his legs and sat in midair to cultivate. Time passed quickly. Wind and clouds surged in the immortal world. Qin Ling and Xia Jizuan appeared in the vision of all living beings again. To cultivators who had surpassed the deity realm, hundreds of thousands of years were very short, but to all living beings, hundreds of thousands of years was a long era. The legends of their previous lives were buried in the various providence sections. Their current fame was mainly because of their deeds. They wreaked havoc in the netherworld, barged into the Dragon Palace, and dominated the three schools of the Tao sect. They were invincible among those below 1,000,000 years old. Most importantly, Qin Ling publicly declared that he wanted to seek justice from the Buddhist sect. Why did the Buddhist sect have to hurt mortals without paying the price? Could subduing demons and devils make up for all the sins? His words resonated with all living beings. The heavenly Tao looked peaceful, but peace had become a huge hammer that suppressed all living beings, making them unable to breathe. Many cultivators used the banner of peace to be fearless, as if the death of one person could not shake the kindness that had saved thousands of people. The Providence sects gave the greatest pressure to all living beings. How was peace established? Wasn't it the power formed by the Providence sects? They had absolutely cruel methods to scare all living beings away from breaking the peace. Qin Ling's encounter was not a special case. He had awakened the hatred in the hearts of all living beings. Later, Qin Ling became a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, and brought a group of good friends to barge into the Buddhist sect and fight against the gods and Buddhas. Unfortunately, he still suffered a crushing defeat. If not for the appearance of the master of the Divine Palace, Zhang Guxing, the Buddhist sect would have killed Qin Ling in the name of righteousness. Even so, the Buddhist sect still sealed Qin Ling under Thunderclap Monastery for 100,000 years as a warning. The Divine Palace was in the wrong and could only agree. All living beings were dejected, thinking that peace could not be overturned. However, during the period when Qin Ling was suppressed, cultivators constantly visited him. Because the Buddhist sect did not send any disciples to guard him. After the visitors talked to Qin Ling, they discovered that he still did not give in. He said that after 100,000 years, he still wanted to fight the Buddhist sect. His spirit began to spread. As time passed, it constantly infected countless people who had suffered in their later lives. He was also valued by many ambitious people who wanted to overthrow the Buddhist sect. The true immeasurable calamity began to brew. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled. He felt refreshed. He had cultivated in seclusion for 80,000 years. Awesome. He suddenly thought of something. Those supreme existences would definitely enter seclusion for a longer time. Hanju took advantage of their seclusion to quietly rise. Wasn't there another possibility? Heaven-defying geniuses also rose in the heavenly Tao amidst his seclusion. Perhaps the next time he opened his eyes, the heavenly Tao would have already changed? It was fine. When the time came, he would let the clone that opened the door for Li Xianeo stare at the heavenly Tao. This would be fine. Hanju began to observe the heavenly Tao. Recently, the heavenly Tao had two more heavenly Tao sages. They were called Tai Sutian and Tianzhan. Ever since Nuwa left, Tai Sutian had become isolated and helpless in the heavenly Tao. In the end, she chose to serve the heavenly Tao. After 1,000,000 years, she obtained the sage's recognition. Tianzhan was the strongest prodigy of the heavenly race. He was born less than 1,000,000 years ago and had become a pseudo-sage. He was the disciple Ji Xianxian valued the most. Han Ju was really surprised that Ji Xianxian could support his disciple so quickly. Among the current heavenly Tao sages, too many people were related to Han Ju. It was impossible for the sages to give him a chance, just because Ji Xianxian was his disciple. It was probably because of Ji Xianxian's efforts. It could be seen that the heavenly Tao had become stronger again from the birth of the two new sages. Generally speaking, there was no problem with the heavenly Tao. It was still steadily developing, and there were no unstable factors internally. Han Ju retracted his gaze and started to check his emails. As he read, only 2 emails caught his attention. Your son Han Tua devoured a chaotic fiend celestial, and his cultivation increased greatly. Your good friend Yi Tian devoured a chaotic fiend celestial, and his cultivation increased greatly. Devour a chaotic fiend celestial? What was going on? Han Ju frowned. These 2 emails were sent not long ago. Now that the chaotic fiend celestials were already united, the grand primordium fiend celestial would probably find trouble with Han Ju. Han Ju noticed that the cultivation of these 2 brats had already soared to the perfected primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm. This was too fast. Should he ask? He hesitated. That was not good. He couldn't stop his son from risking his life to develop independently, right? The grand primordium fiend celestial sent you a dream. Do you accept? Han Ju sighed upon seeing the message that suddenly appeared in front of him. This fellow was finally here. He thought for a moment, and decided to pretend to be dead. The grand primordium fiend celestial was a late-stage great Tao supreme existence. Han Ju was not its match for the time being. If this fellow attacked Han Tua and the other 2, Han Ju could only take out the dark forbidden lord to divert the grand primordium fiend celestial's attention. Chapter 804 Curse Great Tao. Chapter 804 Curse Great Tao. The grand primordium fiend celestial sent you a dream. Do you accept? The grand primordium fiend celestial sent you a dream. Do you accept? Notifications kept appearing in front of Han Ju, making him speechless. It was fine if the sages did this, but the great Tao Supreme was still so anxious. What nonsense was this? Han Ju thought for a moment, and still chose to accept the dream. The dream was the palace of the Grand Primordium domain. Han Ju saw the Grand Primordium fiend celestial meditating 10,000 feet away. Their eyes met, and neither side spoke immediately. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M. The atmosphere was strange and awkward. After a long while, the Grand Primordium fiend celestial asked, Han Ju, do you know what your son did? Han Ju said, I know. He was bewitched by the devil ancestor. However, the devil ancestor is too strong. I'm helpless. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but sigh in shame. The Grand Primordium fiend celestial stared at him and asked, You mean that he's being controlled by the devil ancestor now, and is no longer himself? That's right. Otherwise, why would I let him follow the devil ancestor? Han Ju nodded and sighed. I didn't want to trouble the fiend celestial race about this. After all, the devil ancestor didn't attack the heavenly Tao, and only abducted one of my sons. I couldn't ask for help. I didn't expect Senior Grand Primordium to take the initiative to mention it. I'm really touched, and I feel even more ashamed. I underestimated the unity of the fiend celestial race, and the arrogance of the chaotic fiend celestials. The Grand Primordium fiend celestial was silent. Han Ju was immersed in sorrow and helplessness as he sighed. After a while, the Grand Primordium fiend celestial said, The fiend celestial race will declare war on the devil ancestor. I will help you save your son. Wait for the order. USA. With that, the dream shattered. The Grand Primordium fiend celestial has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points: 2 stars. Han Ju opened his eyes and almost took out the Book of Misfortune when he saw this notification. It was obvious that the Grand Primordium fiend celestial was also an old fox. It didn't believe Han Ju at all, but it couldn't blame him. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. This was also good. He could let the fiend celestial race restrain the devil ancestor. It would be best if they fought until both sides were injured. Han Ju would attack life again, causing a delay to the great Tao immeasurable calamity and giving the heavenly Tao time to rise. Hanju sent a dream to Han Tuo. The dream was on a city wall. It was the old city that Han Tuo had guarded when he was young. Han Tuo opened his eyes and was stunned when he saw this scene. He noticed him and hurriedly came back to his senses. He knelt down and bowed. "Father." Hanju looked at Han Tuo, who was much stronger than before, and sighed. The current Han Tuo really looked like a demon. Hanju said, "How have you been?" Facing his question, Han Tuo did not hide anything. He told him everything about fusing the demonic path and devouring the chaotic fiend celestial. This also indirectly proved that Han Tuo did not have a change of heart towards Hanju. In short, Han Tuo still maintained his true nature, but the process of becoming stronger was no longer as glorious and bright as before. Devil ancestor Lu Yuan had already recovered his body. His short-term goal was to gather the devils again. As for the future plans, Han Tuo did not know for the time being. Hanju said, "The chaotic fiend celestials will hunt you and the devil ancestor down. This happened because of you. Be very careful." Han Tuo was moved, but he did not panic. The threat level of a chaotic fiend celestial and that of the entire fiend celestial race was worlds apart. Furthermore, the chaotic fiend celestials they had fought before were all at the bottom or severely injured. "I understand," Han Tuo agreed. Hanju was a little disappointed upon seeing that he didn't need his help. He said, "Remember, don't say that I revealed the information. If you really can't hold on, you can summon me at any time." Han Tuo opened his eyes. He sat on a white skeleton that was as huge as a mountain range. Etion was still alive beside him. Etion smiled and said, "You were in a daze just now. Could it be that your father was visiting you in your dreams?" They had just finished devouring the chaotic fiend celestials. There might be a reaction between them. Han Tuo said, "No, but the situation might not be good." He looked up at the dark universe and felt that there were pairs of eyes staring at him. Etion sighed. This fiend celestial chi, blood, and providence are really good things. No wonder Pengu wanted to kill 3,000 fiend celestials and absorb their providence. How strong is he? Don't think about it. It's impossible for us to reach that height. After all, there are only dozens of chaotic fiend celestials alive now. Most of them are the strongest existences in the chaos. Han Tuo shook his head. Etion chuckled. At this moment, a voice floated into their ears. "Leave this place and return to the demonic path abyss." It was the devil ancestor Lu Yuan's voice. The two of them immediately stood up and left without hesitation. Their greatest reliance now was the devil ancestor Lu Yuan. There was definitely trouble if even he said so. In the blink of an eye, Hanju entered seclusion for another 10,000 years. He was already 6 million years old. He opened his eyes and took out the Book of Misfortune to curse the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial. After so long, the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial shouldn't think of Hanju if he was cursed. He checked his emails while cursing. There was no email message from Han Tuo and Etion. They had probably been hiding in seclusion for the past 10,000 years. 5 days later, Hanju put down the Book of Misfortune. He only wanted to divert the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial's attention and not curse it to death. Hanju hesitated again after putting away the Book of Misfortune. Wasn't 5 short days too light? After thinking about it, Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing again. Another 5 days passed. Hanju's lifespan began to decrease, but he didn't stop. He still cursed the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial with all his might. Even the first life Black Sovereign could be cursed until something went wrong. Hanju was naturally confident in dealing with the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial. 100 million years, 10 billion years, a trillion years, 100 trillion years, 1 quadrillion years, 10 quadrillion years. Hanju started to feel the pinch. Fortunately, an email finally appeared. Because of your curse, your enemy, the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial's providence, had become chaotic, and his great Tao has been damaged. Hanju immediately stopped. It took him 10 quadrillion years to curse until something went wrong. Wasn't it impossible to curse him to death? The Book of Misfortune was clearly a great Tao supreme treasure. This thing lacked the power to end things. Hanju smiled and became happy. He continued cultivating. Grand Primordium Domain in the palace. The Grand Primordium Fian Celestial's expression darkened. Wisps of strange black aura surrounded him, and were slowly dissipating. What a terrifying curse. Could it be the legendary Dark Forbidden Lord? To be able to hurt me, the other party must be a great Tao Supreme. Could it be the great Tao of curses? The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial muttered to himself, his eyes filled with killing intent. Because of life, the name of the Dark Forbidden Lord had already spread in the chaos. Life had provided a large amount of information. All cultivators targeted by the Dark Forbidden Lord would not die at first, but in the years to come, the Dark Forbidden Lord would torture them from time to time until they let down their guard. Then he would curse crazily, forcing the other party to die, or only protect a trace of their remnant souls. This action was extremely sinister. Chapter 805 Deciding on the Sage. Chapter 805 Deciding on the Sage. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. The Grand Primordium Fian Celestial's eyes flickered. He recalled the legends of the Dark Forbidden Lord, and knew that he couldn't wait for death. He carefully recalled the curse power, and fell into deep thought. The curse power of the Dark Forbidden Lord was domineering and long-lasting. It was extremely strange. He wanted to know if the Dark Forbidden Lord was a curse fiend celestial, and how he cursed. In addition, he had to find a way to avoid this curse. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial closed his eyes, and began to circulate his energy to heal his injuries. He had to recuperate first. How many years had it been? He had not been injured for a long time, and even his great Tao was damaged. Please keep reading 0 in MYB0X and 0VL. C0M. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial was not afraid. Instead, his competitiveness was stimulated. Ennis was he finally met his match. Immortal world far west. Under a magnificent mountain, a man meditated against the mountain wall. Talismans were stuck to his body, and the surrounding mountain wall. This man was Qin Ling. His hair was disheveled, and his clothes were tattered. He had been suppressed here for tens of thousands of years, but he had never stopped cultivating. During the time he was suppressed, although his cultivation level did not increase, he comprehended a lot. At this moment, a man and woman walked along the mountain path. The man was handsome, and the woman was cold. They were Han Yu and the woman in green. The woman in green saw Qin Ling from afar and asked curiously, "Senior, is he that famous peerless prodigy Qin Ling?" For some reason, the woman in green felt that Qin Ling looked familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. Han Yu did not reply and slowly walked in front of Qin Ling. Qin Ling had his eyes closed and did not look at them. In the long years, almost everyone came to see him. Some praised him, some admired him, some mocked him, and some complained. When he announced that he would challenge the Buddhist sect, all living beings gave him too much hope, but he failed. He was utterly defeated. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. Han Yu asked, "Do you regret it?" "No," Qin Ling replied without opening his eyes. He had already answered such a question millions of times, but he was not tired of it. He would answer firmly every time. Han Yu did not ask further and looked at him quietly. At first glance, Qin Ling was suffering more than all living beings. However, he knew that Qin Ling was the exact opposite. He was happier than all living beings. All living beings treated him as the hope of salvation. Little did he know that he was only a pawn used by the sages to appease the anger of all living beings. Furthermore, once this pawn succeeded, he would jump out of his identity as a pawn, and even leave the heavenly Tao. All living beings were still in the sea of suffering, while Qin Ling continued to pursue his Tao in the chaos. Han Yu felt sorrow. He felt sorrow for all living beings. At the same time, Han Yu believed in one thing. What the naked eye saw might not be the truth. What he had pursued his entire life was only an illusion. If not for Han Yu having his father's backing, he might not have been able to see through everything below the heavenly Tao. After the sorrow, Han Yu was even more determined. He had not come all the way just to see Qin Ling. He also wanted to see the various forms of living beings in this calamity. He wanted to become a sage. He wanted to truly benefit all living beings. Han Yu's eyes became firm. He found the determination to cultivate. The woman in green stared at Qin Ling and came to a realization. Wasn't this the mighty figure who had visited Han Yu back then? She couldn't help but look at them strangely. At this moment Han Yu left. The woman in green hurriedly followed. After the two of them left, the woman in green asked, "Isn't that your grand disciple? Why did he reincarnate?" She still remembered that when she first met Qin Ling, he was high-spirited and powerful. Therefore, she couldn't understand why such an expert would reincarnate, and his current situation. Han Yu replied, "This is fate. The suffering he experienced in this life far exceeds your past. But you already know his identity in his previous life." "That's right. His reincarnation this time is only to train. Do you think his suffering in this life is important to his true identity?" The woman in green was silent. 50,000 years passed in a flash. Han Ju's cultivation improved again, making him very satisfied. He opened his eyes and looked outside the Taoist temple. Han Yu was kneeling. Thousands of years ago, Han Yu came to visit alone and was moved into the 100-peak immortal river by his clone. Han Yu asked along the way and came to the Taoist temple to kneel and wait. His arrival attracted the personal disciples to come and watch. He looked too similar to Han Ju. Even Xing Hongxian, Xian Qingjun, Fairy Shi Xian, and Chang Yuer had come out to see him. At first glance, Han Yu looked like Han Ju's illegitimate son, but they were all mighty figures. They knew that Han Yu was Han Ju's descendant. He said, "Come in." The door to the Taoist temple opened, and Han Yu stood up. He stopped in front of him and knelt down again, bowing respectfully. Han Ju smiled. "Sorry to make you wait. Actually, you can find a place to cultivate. There's no need to wait. Didn't the guard outside tell you my seclusion rules?" Han Yu said, "I know. I just feel that I have something to ask of you." "Oh, what is it?" Han Ju smiled. Finally, someone came to ask him for a favor. Han Yu saw Han Ju smile and felt nervous. His smile gave the feeling that he was seen through. He felt ridiculous. Han Yu took a deep breath and said, "I want to become a sage." His tone was firm. He was already mentally prepared after kneeling for thousands of years. Han Ju asked why. Han Yu said, "I want to become a sage who truly cares about all living beings. Not a sage who only cultivates and uses the heavenly Tao as a protective umbrella and a symbol of power." Han Ju blinked. Why did it feel like he was insinuating something? However, he could sense Han Yu's determination. Han Ju sent a voice transmission to Heavenly Venerate Xian Du and decided on this matter. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du agreed immediately. Han Yu was uneasy. After all, this matter was too big. It could even be said to be the #1 matter of the heavenly Tao. Everyone wanted to attain the Tao. Han Ju said, "Yes, this matter is settled. Cultivate in the 100-peak immortal river for 10,000 years, before going to the 33rd heaven, to find Heavenly Venerate Xian Du." Han Yu was stunned. He was speechless. Han Ju waved his sleeve and said, "Remember what you said." Han Yu was in a daze. When he opened his eyes again, he had already arrived at the Cultivate Diligently Become Immortal mountain. A black chicken flew towards him. Inside the Taoist temple, Han Ju started to check his emails. As for Han Yu, he had already forgotten about him. What was a mere sage position? How many sages in the current sage circle were related to him? He was not afraid of being gossiped about. This was also a symbol of his authority. 10,000 years later, Han Yu arrived outside the 33rd heaven and visited Heavenly Venerate Xian Du in front of the Universal Hall. The door opened. Han Yu entered the hall and saw that not only was Heavenly Venerate Xian Du here, but another 5 sages were also present. They were Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Fang Liang, Ji Xianxian, Pan Xian, and the new sage Tianzhan. The 5 sages had different expressions when they saw Han Yu. Tianzhan had never seen Han Yu, but for a pseudo-sage to enter the Universal Hall, and with the sages present, he was probably not simple. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "Han Yu, sit behind fellow Taoist Fang." Han Yu looked up. He wanted to ask who fellow Taoist Fang was, but he saw Fang Liang waving at him without the bearing of a sage. Chapter 806 Appearance of the Fiend Celestial. Chapter 806 Appearance of the Fiend Celestial. Han Yu respectfully sat down behind him. Feng Liang did not say much, but the new sage Tianzhan was especially curious about Han Yu. Pan Xian said, "I've already seen that chaotic sea of fire. It's indeed true. The divine robed Taoist also sincerely gave it to the heavenly Tao. However, he suddenly encountered the interference of other worlds. The other party also has a great Tao sage guarding him. And he's even the loyal lackey of the divine robed Taoist. The divine robed Taoist was complained by the other party, and couldn't take it lying down." Heavenly Venerate Wufa snorted. "You didn't mention fellow Taoist Han's name?" Pan Xian said, "Yes, so both sides agreed to send a pseudo-sage prodigy to fight. The chaotic sea of fire will belong to whoever wins. This agreement is completely beneficial to the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao has countless prodigies. The world under that great Tao sage is far inferior." Ji Xianxian said, "Our heavenly race has many geniuses. We can accept this battle." Tianzhan nodded with a proud expression. Feng Liang reminded, "It's better to be safe than sorry. It's best to send the strongest pseudo-sage." Heavenly Venerate Xian Du revealed a rare smile and said, "We have countless geniuses. I really can't say who is the number one in the world." Tianzhan said, "Send my disciple. He fought 10 pseudo-sages of the Calamity race alone, and was not at a disadvantage. He's the number one prodigy of the heavenly race." Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du glanced at Ji Xianxian, who nodded. Ji Xianxian hesitated for a moment and said, "We won't lose this battle. Tianzhan will lose his sage position if we do." Tianzhan was moved and his eyes became firm. After returning, he still had to teach his disciples and prepare some methods. He couldn't afford to lose. Han Yu sat behind Feng Liang and listened to the sage's conversation. He was secretly shocked. From the looks of it, sages were not on the same level. There were also differences among sages. A new sage could be demoted just like that. The ancestor was at least on the same level as Heavenly Venerate Xian Du, right? Han Yu thought silently. He knew that Han Ju was very strong. But the one in charge of the Heavenly Tao was Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. Some people even joked that Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was the leader, and the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was the Heavenly Tao's faith. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was in charge of managing the Heavenly Tao, while the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was in charge of intimidating the chaos. This matter is settled. We must take down the chaotic sea of fire. It concerns the future of the Heavenly Tao for billions of years. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said softly. By the way, the next new sage has been decided. It's the person behind fellow Taoist Feng, the personal disciple of the former Heavenly Tao sage Li Daokong, the master of Buzhou Divine Mountain. Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Pan Xian, Feng Liang, and Ji Xianxian nodded. It was not strange. Tianzhan was enlightened. So that was the case. This person's identity was so great. No wonder he could enter the sage realm early. Han Yu hurriedly bowed. He didn't expect this matter to be settled so quickly. There was not even a formality. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU then. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du waved his sleeve, and the sages left, leaving Han Yu in the hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du looked at him and smiled. You look really similar to fellow Taoist Han. Speaking of which, you taught Qin Ling, right? This child is impressive. He will be the Heavenly Tao's guardian in the future. Han Yu said, It's all thanks to the sages that my grand disciple can have today's creation. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du asked, Do you think all of this is hypocritical and even sinful? Han Yu was stunned and remained silent. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, I saw a hint of disdain in your eyes earlier. Do you think that sages are numb and heartless because of Qin Ling, and treat all things in the world as pawns? Han Yu was still silent. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, So what if it's a shocking lie? This lie will indeed attract innocent living beings to die. However, this loss is nothing in the calamity before the Heavenly Tao. There is no absolute peace. If the sages did not open the chaotic heavenly road, all living beings will be attacked by the inauspicious evil when they head to the dark forbidden zone. The Heavenly Tao is so closed off, but the number of living beings has reached the limit. They even have to snatch spirit chi to breathe. What kind of scene is that? Han Yu was moved. He was not a pedantic person. He also understood the overall situation of the sages, but he was a little unhappy that they were deceiving all living beings. Kind lies were also lies, especially to those who believed them and died. This was a sin. Things in the world are unfair. If you can find the answer after you become a sage, that's good. Perhaps the heavenly Tao has yet to find the true path. Heavenly Venerate Xian, Du said meaningfully. Han Yu was deep in thought. After a long while, he bowed to Heavenly Venerate Xian Du and said, "Thank you for your guidance, sage." The fact that Heavenly Venerate Xian Du could say these words to him meant that he cared about him. Otherwise, he could completely let him act recklessly. He could take the opportunity to free the sage position if he made a mistake in the future. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "It's fine. I'll preach the Tao for you and increase your cultivation. You're still short of the sage position." Han Yu was ashamed and could only nod. In the blink of an eye, Han Ju entered seclusion for another 50,000 years. He opened his eyes and stretched. Only after 50,000 years could he feel the improvement in his cultivation. He really wanted to enter seclusion and break through in one go. It might appear to be a dream once he ignored everything. Unfortunately, he still cared about his disciples. He opened the emails. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren transformed into billions of Dharma idols and walked in the chaotic space-time. Your good friend Jiang Yi has absorbed the power of the chaotic sun star, and his cultivation has increased. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was attacked by your good friend Divine Robe Taoist. Your good friend Di Jiang was attacked by your good friend Divine Robe Taoist. Your good friend Nuwa. Your good friend Huang Zuantian was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your son Han Tua has comprehended the great Tao of extreme origin, and his cultivation has increased. Your good friend Ancestor Shitian has received guidance from your good friend Tao Ancestor. His cultivation has increased. Why was the Divine Robe Taoist fighting with the evil Heavenly Emperor and the great Tao sages in the deity realm of the ruins of End? Fortunately, he was not severely injured. It was probably a small fight. Han Ju noticed that Ancestor Shitian had established a connection with the Tao Ancestor. The Tao Ancestor had revived? No. It was probably still his will. Speaking of which, the Tao Ancestor and Pengu were really mysterious. They looked like they had died, but they would cause trouble from time to time. Han Ju continued reading. The Devil Ancestor should have been well behaved recently. Han Tua and Etion had been cultivating in seclusion, and so had the Life faction. Chaotic peace was good. Everyone cultivated in peace. When I'm invincible, if you cause trouble again, give me a stage and a chance. Han Ju thought to himself. Although he was already a great Tao sage, he rarely interacted with others. He had developed a scheming personality. Only then did he not find cultivation boring. He looked forward to the content of the emails every time his seclusion ended. After reading the emails, Han Ju looked at the immortal world. Qin Ling had already broken the seal. He did not immediately take revenge, but cultivated in seclusion in the divine palace. The immeasurable calamity would officially begin after Qin Ling became a pseudo-sage. Too early, Han Ju thought of the 10,000 divine authority generals. He didn't know where they were now. They hadn't appeared in his emails yet. Detected that the strength fiend celestial has been successfully nurtured and is about to stir up the chaos. You have the following choices. Chapter 807 Foolish Sword Sage vs. Pengu. Chapter 807 Foolish Sword Sage vs. Pengu. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and kill the Strength Fiend Celestial. You can obtain a Great Tao Fragment and a Creation Spirit Stone. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and do not participate in the conflict. You can obtain a Great Tao Fragment and a Creation Spirit Stone. The Strength Fiend Celestial should be Pengu. He had already confirmed that Pengu had reincarnated. Han Ju was afraid of provoking him and had never created the Strength Fiend Celestial. Was Pengu finally going to appear after so many years? Seeing that the rewards were the same, Han Ju didn't hesitate and directly chose the second option. He took out the Creation Spirit Stone and fused it with a ball of fiend celestial chi in the primordial world. Hanju looked up into the depths of the chaos and began to search for the strength fiend celestial's aura. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M. After a long while, he finally felt a very powerful chaotic fiend celestial aura. This aura was especially different from ordinary living beings. It was filled with ruthlessness and caused one to feel danger. However, he couldn't see the strength fiend celestial's existence. It should be hiding in a special space-time dimension. Hanju retracted his gaze. An hour later, he opened his eyes again. He felt inexplicably horrified, as if his natural enemy had appeared. This feeling was very subtle but also very accurate. It could directly tell him the reason. If he was already like this, the other chaotic fiend celestials should feel it even more deeply. I'm a primordial fiend celestial. Why do I feel it too? Hanju was surprised. Could it be that the primordial fiend celestial and the chaotic fiend celestial were really related by the evolution chain? Forget it, it's none of my business. Hanju closed his eyes again and continued cultivating. In the dark space, boundless mist spread. At the edge of the lake, Han-Tua and Etion meditated and cultivated quietly. They suddenly opened their eyes at the same time. A terrifying aura erupted from their bodies, and their faces became sinister. Indescribable anger erupted from their hearts like a volcano erupting. Their auras surged until their long hair fluttered like dragons and snakes. The two of them gasped and glared ahead. After a long time, the uncontrollable anger dissipated. Etion turned to look at Han-Tua and asked, "What did you feel just now?" Han-Tua's eyes were cold as he said, "Killing intent. A bone-chilling killing intent that comes from the soul resonance." Etion snorted. "That's right. Unfortunately, we're not strong enough. We're not even qualified." He did not say anything, but Han-Tua understood. At this moment, a ball of demonic chi appeared behind the two of them and transformed into the devil ancestor Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan said, "Do you feel it?" The two of them turned around and nodded. Lu Yuan said, "Panga's reincarnation. The previous battle of the Fiend Celestials is about to begin again." Han-Tua frowned and asked, "Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity?" Lu Yuan said, "No. The Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity is to be activated by the primordial Fiend Celestial. Pangu appeared to purge the chaotic Fiend Celestials. He wants to use the power of the chaotic Fiend Celestials to strengthen himself and prepare to welcome the birth of the primordial Fiend Celestial. In other words, you will be his target." "Me too." Han-Tua and Etion frowned. Lu Yuan said faintly, "Even the 3,000 chaotic Fiend Celestials are not Panga's match. There are less than 100 now. Panga will be invincible." Han-Tua asked, "Aren't the great Tao divine spirits going to do anything?" Lu Yuan said, "They won't. If they did, Panga wouldn't be so world-shattering. It might be the leader of the gods." "Who is the leader of the gods?" "Unspeakable name." Han-Tua and Etion were silent. Lu Yuan said, "Prepare to welcome Pangu." "What a good plan. No wonder the great Tao divine spirits didn't pursue life in me. They were all plotting for Pangu. They were waiting for Pangu to clean up the chaos and let him become stronger. Pangu and the primordial Fiend Celestial will be natural enemies when the latter appears. Only one can survive." Han-Tua frowned. "Be it Pangu or the primordial Fiend Celestial, the chaos will still face the winner among them. Could it be that the great Tao divine spirits expect them to both be injured? An existence like them can recover instantly even if they are severely injured. Can't the great Tao divine spirits think of this?" Lu Yuan said, "If we guessed this, there wouldn't be the current situation. Cultivate well. I'm going to find life. You can't leave during this period of time. You can't stop Pangu if he comes." With that, the devil ancestor dissipated. Etion scratched his head. "Who cares? In any case, we just have to think of a way to kill Pangu. That fellow has just been successfully nurtured. Could it be that he has invincible strength the moment he is born?" Han-Tua took a deep breath and did not reply. All chaotic Fiend Celestials, come to the Grand Primordium domain. Hanju, who was cultivating, heard the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial's voice. It was probably about Pangu. Hanju created a clone and continued cultivating, he had to enter seclusion for at least 50,000 years. Besides, he was not a true chaotic fiend celestial. What did killing a chaotic fiend celestial have to do with him? 1,000 years later, in the Grand Primordium domain, the fiend celestials gathered in the hall. Hanju's clone noticed that there were more new faces and fewer old faces. The foolish sword sage and red fate were on his left and right, 10,000 feet apart. The atmosphere in the hall was tense. The good-natured fiend celestials of the ancient sects did not say a word. Panga's name was definitely a nightmare for the chaotic fiend celestials, especially for the ancient fiend celestials. The Grand Primordium fiend celestial had a headache. Previously, it was still preparing to deal with the dark forbidden lord. It did not expect Panga to appear at this moment. Somehow, he felt that he was being targeted. A hand was approaching him. Panga has just been born. What's there to be afraid of? As long as we don't give him time, we can kill him as soon as possible. The foolish sword sage suddenly said with a disdainful tone. He despised the chaotic fiend celestials present. They didn't have the arrogance of a chaotic fiend celestial at all. Panga was not born as the strongest fiend celestial. His reputation was earned by killing. We have already learned our lesson. Why should we be afraid of him? The foolish sword sage said proudly. He was not the least afraid. An ancient fiend celestial mocked. If you're so arrogant, why don't you kill Pango? The foolish sword sage smiled. How will you thank me if I do? I will serve you as your servant. All right. The foolish sword sage stood up and left. No fiend celestial stopped him. After he disappeared, Red Fate sent a voice transmission to Hanju. Aren't you going to stop him? Hanju replied with a voice transmission. I'm not close to him. Then, why did he sit near you twice? That's just his wishful thinking. Hanju's reply had a double meaning. Red Fate glanced at him and didn't say anything else. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial said. In that case, we'll wait for Foolish Sword Sage to test Panga's current cultivation level. The Chaotic Fiend Celestials had no objections. In any case, they hated the Foolish Sword Sage. The hall fell silent as the Fiend Celestials began to cultivate. Thousands of years later, they seemed to sense something and opened their eyes. Hanju was the same. A Chaotic Fiend Celestial began to fight. Hanju was secretly curious. Could the newly nurtured Panga defeat the Foolish Sword Sage? According to the plan, the Foolish Sword Sage should lose. Otherwise, what would happen if Panga died as soon as he was born? Chapter 808 Sage's Choice. Chapter 808 Sage's Choice. While Hanju was curious about the outcome, the Chaotic Fiend Celestials also began to discuss. Pangu is still Pangu. This aura is really unforgettable. Although I hate him, I have to say that the Great Tao of Strength is indeed powerful. Back then, the Great Tao of Heavenly Constellation was almost on par with him. Unfortunately, he still died in the hands of the Heaven Opening Axe. If not for the Heaven Opening Axe, the Chaotic Green Lotus, and the Chaotic Bead, how could Pangu have killed through the 3,000 Fiend Celestials? Pangu is barehanded in this life. Perhaps we have overestimated him. The Foolish Sword Sage has attacked. What a powerful sword chi! Hanju was secretly anxious upon hearing the communication of the Fiend Celestials. He was not a true chaotic Fiend Celestial. He couldn't sense the battle, and could only sense the direction. He didn't know where the two of them were hiding. Why didn't you start a live stream? Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0XN0VL. C0M Hanju complained in his heart. He felt that the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial would not come. However, he couldn't say it lest he exposed that he was not a chaotic Fiend Celestial. Perhaps even the chaotic Fiend Celestials could see that there was a special connection, but he could not. Listening to the communication of the chaotic Fiend Celestials, the battle was very intense. The Foolish Sword Sage seemed to be stronger than before, but Pangu was also powerful. This Pangu can't even insta-kill the Foolish Sword Sage. He's nothing much. Hanju thought silently. He actually wanted to deal with Pangu, but he knew that this Pangu was not truly resurrected. The real Pangu would still be around even if this one was destroyed. It was better to wait for Pangu to kill a few more chaotic Fiend Celestials, and reduce the number of opponents for him and his son. Then, He would attack and destroy Pangu with the righteousness of the chaotic fiend celestials. He was not enemies with Pangu. He had no choice. He had to protect himself. An hour later, the hall suddenly fell silent. Hanju understood that the battle was over. Why aren't they saying anything? Hanju's clone couldn't check his emails, so he could only be anxious. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial slowly said. The foolish sword sage was defeated. Unfortunately, he still had a chance of winning. Who knew that Pangu would have another supreme treasure? The Fiend Celestial spoke. What supreme treasure is that? It can actually reflect the foolish sword sage's sword Tao. He's indeed powerful. Pangu was pierced by the foolish sword sage's sword Tao, but he can still kill him. The foolish sword sage is impressive. Although this fellow is arrogant, his potential is indeed great. Most importantly, he doesn't rely on his great Tao, but his sword Tao. His sword Tao is not bad. I wonder how strong that opponent is. Hanju was not surprised. The foolish sword sage was indeed not strong. He wondered if he was dead. Hanju passed this matter to his main body. In the Taoist temple, Hanju knew that the foolish sword god sage had lost, but he didn't open his eyes and continued cultivating. Only when the 50,000 years of seclusion ended did he open his eyes. His clone was still in the Grand Primordium domain, preparing to welcome Pangu. Hanju checked his emails and found emails about the foolish sword sage. Your good friend foolish sword sage was attacked by your enemy Pangu. Your good friend foolish sword sage was attacked by a mysterious force. His soul is in a daze. Your good friend foolish sword sage was attacked by your enemy Pangu. He was severely injured and his body was destroyed. Your good friend foolish sword sage was saved by a mysterious mighty figure. His soul escaped. A third party interfered? Hanju asked in his mind. Who attacked the foolish sword sage when he fought Pangu, causing his soul to be in a daze? 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. A figure appeared in Hanju's mind, and a notification appeared in front of him. Holy Mother of Order. Late-stage Great Tao Supreme Realm. Great Tao Divine Spirit, it was her. Hanju narrowed his eyes. He would never forget how the Holy Mother of Order broke the heavenly Tao the moment she attacked. He continued to ask, who saved the foolish sword sage? 900 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Laozi. Perfected Great Tao Supreme Realm. Transcendent Tao Expert. Panga's Essence Soul. Personal disciple of the Tao Ancestor. Creator of the Sword Tao. Ancestor of the 100 Schools. Immeasurable Emperor. Ancestor of the Human School. Founder of the Great Tao. Panga's Essence Soul helped the foolish sword sage deal with Pangu? Interesting. In that case, the Tao sects and Pangu might not be on good terms. It made sense upon thinking about it carefully. If not for Panga's death, how could the Tao ancestor have the opportunity to control all living beings? Then let them fight. Hanju smiled. The thought of fighting Pangu made him inexplicably excited. He began the simulation trial and fought against 5,000 foolish sword sages. After repeating it hundreds of times, Hanju's excitement subsided. He couldn't defeat 5,000 foolish sword sages. The foolish sword sage couldn't defeat Pangu. Yeah, he deduced that he couldn't defeat Pangu, so he could not be rash. Hanju prepared to continue cultivating. His strength would definitely increase greatly again when he reached the perfected Great Tao Primordial Chaos Realm. At that time, Pangu would be nothing. One day, he would fight 10,000 Pangu in the simulation trial. At this moment, fellow Taoist Han, please come to the Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's voice floated into his ears. It was really time. Hanju stood up and came to the Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du immediately summoned the other sages. All the sages arrived in less than 5 minutes. South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao. Heavenly Venerate Wufa, Xiao Shilai, Fong Liang, Jin Shen Pan Xian Su Du Dao Su Qi Li Taigu Primordial Chaos Buddha, Zhang Guxing, Long Hao Ji Xianshan, Divine Might Buddha, and Yang Che all arrived, including Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. The Heavenly Tao already had 21 Heavenly Tao sages. It was obvious how much stronger they were than before. Hanyu had just become a sage not long ago. He was secretly excited upon seeing that his father and Heavenly Venerate Xian Du were on the same level. However, Hanju didn't look at him, so he couldn't show it. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "Pangu has revived." The hall was shocked. Who was Pangu? The founder of the Heavenly Tao. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was their ancestor. Pangu is chasing after the chaotic fiend celestials. He will come to the Heavenly Tao sooner or later. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du continued. The sages were moved. They suddenly remembered that Hanju was also a chaotic fiend celestial. This matter had already spread in the chaos. Didn't that mean that Pangu would also kill him? But that was Pangu. Helping Hanju meant killing Pangu. This was a betrayal. Hanyu's expression was also ugly. He did not expect to face such a thing as soon as he became a sage. He looked at his father and saw that his expression was normal, and he didn't feel any pressure. That was giant god Pangu. In the Heavenly Tao, Pangu was a creation god. The older the faith of all living beings, the stronger they became. How could Hanju be Pangu's match? Pan Xian snorted. Although I'm Pangu's descendant, I support fellow Taoist Han. Now we're Heavenly Tao sages. If anything happens to fellow Taoist Han, the Heavenly Tao will definitely be devoured by the chaos. Do you think Pangu will protect the Heavenly Tao in the future? He sent you a dream. The sages were surprised. They didn't expect the first to support Hanju to be Pan Xian, a descendant of Pangu. Xiao smiled. That's right. Times have changed. If Pangu dares to come, he will know that his era has passed. The sages had even stranger expressions. Xiao, who had always been afraid of death and loved to scheme, also chose to support Hanju at this juncture, and not go against Pangu. Chapter 809 Momentum, Grand Primordium's Determination. Chapter 809 Momentum, Grand Primordium's Determination. Pan Xian and Xiao had already spoken. The other sages naturally did not dare to remain silent. They all swore that they would protect the Heavenly Tao and fight Pangu. Hanju was not touched. Under such circumstances, only a fool would jump out to support Pangu. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "This battle has to be fought first. Before Pangu comes, we have to publicize this matter. We're not defaming Pangu, we're just making sense. Pangu slaughtered the chaotic fiend celestials only to become stronger. The Heavenly Tao will return to how it was in the past, if it doesn't have the divine might Heavenly Sage. The Heavenly Tao owes Pangu the favor of opening up the world, but it owes the divine might Heavenly Sage the favor of saving the world and creating a new life several times. It's better for us to explain clearly than to be used by the enemy. The current Heavenly Tao travels the chaos. It's very difficult to directly control the hearts of all living beings. We can only use emotions and logic." The sages nodded and felt that it made sense. They were also cultivators. The more they suppressed some things and hid them, the more rebellious they became. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du looked at Hanju and asked, "Are you confident?" Hanju said, "How can I be confident when facing Pangu? All I can say is that I'll try my best." The old sages smiled, and the new sages had solemn expressions. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn 0VL. C0M. Only those who were familiar with Hanju knew his personality. He would have run away long ago if he couldn't win. Hanju was still so calm. It was not because he was confident, but because he was extremely confident. Doing his best was already Hanju's greatest arrogance. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du said, "Currently, Pangu has already sent 3 chaotic fiend celestials. They are about to rush to the Grand Primordium domain and fight the fiend celestial race that has been established for a period of time. It will probably take a long time for Pangu to come to the Heavenly Tao." The sages nodded. Then, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du began to talk about some development of the Heavenly Tao. Hanju was bored and opened the emails to kill time. 2 hours later, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du talked about the 3 Pure Sacred World. The 3 Pure Sacred World has recruited cultivators of the Tao sect ever since its establishment. It can be considered to have regained the Tao ancestors' lineage and has the momentum to strengthen the Tao sect. Pangu swept through the chaos. and the one who benefited the most was probably the Tao sect. The three pure sacred world is not too far from the heavenly Tao. It's near the original deity realm of the ruins of End. They are all under the jurisdiction of the divine robe Taoist. Although the divine robe Taoist is a great Tao divine spirit, he is not Laozi's match. One day, the divine robe Taoist will not be able to suppress the three pure sacred world. The three pure sacred world will compete with the heavenly Tao sooner or later. We have to be prepared. The sages fell into deep thought. There were many experts in the three pure sacred world. The heavenly Tao could not compare. The strongest in the heavenly Tao was Hanju. With great sage void soul, there were only two great Tao sages. Laozi, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning, the heavenly sect master, and their personal disciples were all great Tao sages. The sages did not know that Laozi was not a great Tao sage either, but an existence that surpassed one. Feng Liang said, "The chaos is vast. Even if the heavenly Tao and the three pure sacred world develop extremely quickly, it still needs 100 million years to border us. Only then will there be a conflict of benefits. 100 million years is enough for the heavenly Tao to give birth to many mighty figures. No matter how strong the three pure sacred world is, it's not formed by Pangu sacrificing his cultivation at his peak. The great creation of the heavenly Tao is the greatest in the chaos." Why was the providence of the heavenly Tao so strong? It always gave birth to mighty figures. Wasn't it because Pangu was already the strongest in the chaos when he was created? The strongest existence in the chaos sacrificed himself to create a world. It was naturally the strongest in the chaos. Furthermore, it was the world with the oldest lifespan. It was just that it had been suppressed by the Tao ancestor for a long time. The sages smiled confidently. From today onwards, all sages must often open their Tao field and preach the Tao to all living beings. After the calamity ends, we will strive for the number of sages to reach 100. Heavenly Venerate Xian, do explain the next heavenly Tao plan firmly. The sages were excited. The more sages there were, the stronger the previous sages would become. This was a boat. When everyone advanced, the people in front would naturally benefit more. The more new sages there were, the more freedom sages there would be. The more freedom sages there were, the more great Tao sages there would be born. One heavenly Venerate Xian do arrange some more things, and then let the sages disperse. Hanju also stood up and left. In 2 steps, he vanished without a trace. The new sages secretly admired him. Hanju didn't frown even when facing a great enemy like Pangu. Was this the divine might heavenly sage? In his eyes, what kind of existence was Pangu? In the grand primordium domain, dozens of chaotic fiend celestials were still meditating in the hall. Hanju's clone was still there. The chaotic fiend celestials would begin to discuss every 1,000 years. Pangu was frantically chasing after the wandering fiend celestials, who had not entered the fiend celestial race, and killed them all. Every time a fiend celestial died, their providence would transfer to Pangu's body, causing his cultivation level to increase greatly. The battle of the fiend celestials before the creation of the world repeated. Hanju's clone was also here. Hearing the fiend celestials' emotions, he secretly despised them. All of them were here, not daring to personally look for Pangu. They could only wait for Pangu to come knocking. The grand primordium fiend celestial did not speak, and meditated quietly. However, all the fiend celestials could sense that his aura was becoming stronger. He wanted to fight Pangu. The grand primordium fiend celestial also had ambitions. He had always thought that he was not inferior to Pangu, but due to heavenly providence, Pangu had 3 birth supreme treasures, and they were all supreme treasures that matched the great Tao of strength. He only had 1 supreme treasure at the beginning, so how could he defeat him? Red Fate sent a voice transmission to Hanju. "Fellow Taoist Han, isn't your true body coming? Be careful not to be killed by Pangu alone." Hanju sent a voice transmission. "I'm hiding in the heavenly Tao. I'm also a descendant of Pangu. He will only leave me behind." Red Fate was silent. That made sense. At this moment, a fiend celestial exclaimed, "The foolish sword sage isn't dead?" He actually went to challenge Pangu again. The other fiend celestial spoke. Previously he was not Pangu's match. Now Pangu is several times stronger. How dare he? The foolish sword sage has also become stronger. This fellow is impressive. No wonder he dared to challenge Panga back then. Unfortunately, Pangu is too strong. Why do I feel that something is wrong? Panga seems to have someone helping him? The fiend celestials quickly saw the problem. Every time the foolish sword sage injured Pangu, he would always recover. Most importantly, his blood essence would not decrease. Pangu was only a strength fiend celestial, and had not grasped any other great Tao. What right did he have to face existences of the same level, without dying, and maintaining his full strength? Hanju thought to himself. You finally see through it. Pangu had the support of the Holy Mother of Order. Hanju felt that there must be other transcendent existences behind him. Previously, life and the devil race had swept through the chaos. The great Tao divine spirits had not interfered. Now that Pangu had come out, the ones who had suffered the most were life and the devil race. There were also many chaotic fiend celestials in life. Several hours later, the foolish sword sage was defeated again, but this time, he relied on his own methods to escape. Panga's power caused the fiend celestials to become silent again. The Grand Primordium fiend celestial suddenly opened his eyes and said, "We can't wait for death. It's time for us to attack." He slowly stood up and said in a loud voice, "Everyone, follow me to fight Pangu." With that said, all the fiend celestials stood up. They were just waiting for this sentence. Chapter 8:10 Attention of the Chaotic Consciousness. Chapter 8:10 Attention of the Chaotic Consciousness. Those who only have their clones here, send your main bodies immediately. Kill Pangu in one battle, and let him know that his era has passed. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial scanned all the Fiend Celestials, and said seriously. Hanju felt that this fellow was talking about him. In this palace, only a few chaotic Fiend Celestials had sent clones. The others were all their main bodies. They were also afraid that their main bodies would be killed by Pangu if they stayed in their hometown. Just like that, the Fiend Celestials flew out of the palace, under the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial's lead. Hanju would take advantage of the situation to see Panga's strength. 10,000 years later, Hanju came to the second Tao field, and released the Thunderbolt Fiend Celestial to let Morongchi receive him. Morongchi was extremely happy to have another Fiend Celestial companion. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn0VL. C0M Hanju looked at the second Tao field, after the two of them left. All these years, the Fiend Celestials have been very impatient. They all feel Panga's threat, Li Yao said softly. She also felt it. Not only that, but Panga's name burst out from her bloodline, and surged into her mind, letting her know the reason. Hanju asked, "Has it been soothed?" Li Yao nodded. "It's all thanks to Morongchi. I have to say that your grand disciple is indeed very talented." Hanju smiled. Of course. He valued Morongchi the most. Tao Comprehension Sword asked, "Master, will Pangu find us?" Hanju said, "Yes, but he can't enter." Pangu clearly had the ability to track the Fiend Celestials. He could sense its direction even if he couldn't spy on the second Tao field. This was a resonance between the Fiend Celestials. Tao Comprehension Sword was curious. She was already curious about the array formation of the Tao field, but she did not dare to ask. Li Yao smiled. "Don't worry. Even if the sky falls, Sect Master will hold it up. Pangu is not our enemy. Our enemy is still in the future." Most of the Fiend Celestials had already entered the Sage Realm, but they had yet to reach the Freedom Realm. That's right. You have to at least reach the Great Tao Sage Realm before you can serve me. Hanju smiled. Unfortunately, he didn't have a beard. Otherwise, it would be so cool to stroke it and smile. Of course, he could also grow a beard himself. Hanju chatted with the two women for a while before returning to the main Tao field. He checked the emails. Your good friend Foolish Sword Sage has stepped into the Sword Tao and comprehended its true meaning. Your son Han Tua has stepped into the Freedom Primordial Chaos Realm. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Etion has stepped into the Freedom Primordial Chaos Realm. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Dao Sovereign has entered the chaotic Fian Celestial's corpse. Your disciple Zhao Xinyuan has entered. As your good friend Divine Robe Taoist was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your enemy Seven Dao Sage has successfully revived. Your good friend Foolish Sword Sage has fused his Great Dao with the Sword Dao and successfully stepped into the Great Dao Supreme realm. Foolish Sword Sage had become a Great Dao Supreme. Was this considered rebuilding after destruction? Hanju couldn't help but sigh. This fellow was indeed powerful. Han Tua and Yi Tian were also considered people with great providence. They had reached the freedom realm so quickly, and were even stronger than his disciples. No wonder most cultivators risked their lives to seek opportunities. Hanju also noticed that Seven Dao Sage had revived. Seven Dao Sage was no longer anything in his eyes. If he knew his place, Hanju wouldn't care about him for the time being. But he would be insta-killed if he still dared to act recklessly. The reason why Hanju didn't kill the Seven Dao Sage was that he wanted to wait for him to come knocking before throwing him into the primordial heavenly prison to strengthen his forces. Unlike sages, Great Dao Sages were really difficult to nurture. Hanju continued reading the emails. Panga's appearance caused his friends to settle down. They rarely encountered a series of beatings. It had to be said that Panga was ferocious. His influence could be said to be the #1 in history. After reading the emails, Hanju switched his consciousness to his clone. At this moment, his clone was still following the Fiend Celestials through the chaos. The chaos was endless. It would take time to find Pangu. Furthermore, this fellow seemed to be deliberately hiding. It might be related to the battle that had just ended. Foolish Sword Sage sent you a dream. Do you accept? Hanju's thoughts were interrupted by the notification. He hesitated for a moment and then asked in his mind, will it be dangerous for me to accept the Foolish Sword Sage's dream? After all, this fellow was already the Great Dao Supreme. He was no longer the same as before. 400 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju chose to accept the dream. The dream was a primordial void, the place where the two of them fought. The Foolish Sword Sage looked no different from before, but his entire body had already transformed. Countless sword shadows were interwoven in his eyes. The Foolish Sword Sage smiled. I've become stronger. You might not be my match anymore. Hanju said, then you're really powerful. The Foolish Sword Sage said, don't fight with Pangu. He has a mighty figure behind him. It's impossible to defeat him. Panga's revival this time is only to restore the chaotic order. Perhaps it's for the primordial Fiend Celestial. After all, in the chaotic situation, it's easier for the primordial Fiend Celestial to grow. Hanju said helplessly. I don't want to fight with him either. But can I make the decision? Perhaps, as long as it's the Heavenly Dao's rules. You survived? Panga won't find trouble with you anymore? Yes, I've already fought him twice. It can be considered as proving myself. He promised not to look for me again, as long as I don't stop him. Hanju fell into deep thought. Panga was actually a pawn. The Foolish Sword Sage said, Divine Might Heavenly Sage, I look forward to defeating you openly. Don't die. With that, the dream shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and asked in his mind, I want to know who the greatest backer behind Panga's operation is? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Chaos consciousness. Cultivation unknown chaotic deity. Above the great Tao, rules and order unspeakable name. Indeed it's him. Hanju's heart sank. The strongest existence he knew. There were not many providence labels, but each was extremely important. Hanju asked in his mind, will the chaotic consciousness attack me if I defeat Pangu? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Not for the time being, but it will pay attention to you. Attention? Hanju suddenly thought of something, and his expression became strange. I see. The chaotic consciousness guessed that there might be a primordial Fiend Celestial among the chaotic Fiend Celestials. So it was using Pangu to test the waters? This fellow's goal was not to clean up the chaos, but to find the primordial Fiend Celestial. Who else could defeat the strongest chaotic Fiend Celestial apart from the primordial Fiend Celestial? Hanju was in a dilemma. Didn't this mean that he couldn't attack Pangu? Even with the protection of the Dao field, it would be troublesome once his identity was exposed. The entire chaos would target his Dao field and his disciples, friends, and descendants. Perhaps Hanju could move all of them into the Dao field. But wouldn't that be imprisoning them? Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune. I can only rely on you now. Hanju touched the Book of Misfortune and sighed. I didn't expect that I would still have to rely on you today. You're really my treasure. Chapter 8:11 Panga's Strength, Hanju's Hot-Bloodedness. Chapter 8:11 Panga's Strength, Hanju's Hot-Bloodedness. Hanju held the Book of Misfortune and started to hesitate. What should he do with Pangu? No, the chaotic consciousness would definitely scheme again before he achieved his goal, if he cursed him to death. Why wait for Pangu and the Fiend Celestials to fight before Hanju cursed and reached a situation where both sides were injured to buy himself time to develop? There was no need for Hanju to end this calamity directly. He could prolong it. Then he would wait until they fought. Hanju put away the Book of Misfortune and perked up before continuing to cultivate. The news of Panga's revival spread to the heavenly Tao. As the Providence sects promoted it, all living beings also learned about this matter. The Divine Might Heavenly Sage was actually a chaotic fiend celestial, and Pangu was coming to kill him. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M. Some supported the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, while others supported Pangu. However, overall more living beings supported the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. Pangu was too old for all living beings to remember. His legends were also very short. On the other hand, the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was more familiar. In Hanju's previous life, it was just like how the humans knew that a creation god wanted to deal with Bodhisattva Guanyin. Most people would support the latter. The Divine Might Heavenly Sage had indeed saved the heavenly Tao time and time again, and he had never left a stain in the mortal world. He was also the most mysterious sage, and only knew how to cultivate in seclusion. The current heavenly Tao was filled with internal and external troubles. Pangu was attacking from the outside, and there was resentment accumulated from the rules of peace. The immeasurable calamity was about to blow again. Many mighty figures had already gathered around Qin Ling. They were all enemies of the Buddhist sect or cultivators who were dissatisfied with the world. They were all waiting for Qin Ling to break through. Once he became a pseudo-sage, it would be time to start a war with the Buddhist sect. The Buddhist sect also knew about this, but they were helpless. They couldn't target Qin Ling again with a groundless accusation. Qin Ling had already been suppressed for 100,000 years. It would be against the righteousness of peace if they attacked him again. Time passed. Year after year passed. On this day, Hanju suddenly opened his eyes. He had been in seclusion for 9,732 years. He took out the Book of Misfortune. Through his clone, he already knew that the Fiend Celestials had already collided with Pangu. Dozens of chaotic Fiend Celestials fought Pangu angrily. Layers of space shattered, and the primordial void appeared as soon as the battle began. Hanju's clone was skiving. He was not the only one. Many Fiend Celestials were also the same. It was mainly the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial fighting Pangu. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial was indeed powerful. It had the upper hand in the beginning, but the more Pangu fought, the stronger he became. The trend of becoming stronger was completely unreasonable. Pangu would turn the tables sooner or later if this continued. Hanju started cursing. His dermic powers surged into the Book of Misfortune, and he heaved a sigh of relief. He could curse. It seemed that Pangu did not have the karma bead. With Hanju's interference, Pangu was indeed affected and couldn't end the battle in half a day. 5 days later, Pangu had already begun to suppress all the Fiend Celestials. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial was already severely injured, and half of his Tao soul had been severed. Although he could cultivate it back, he needed time. Hanju's lifespan began to decrease. As he cursed, he used his clone's eyes to watch the battle. Without the heaven-opening axe, Pangu fought with a saber. This saber was a bone saber. The blade was wide and larger than his body. At first glance, he thought it was another heaven-opening axe. Pangu did not have any profound mystical powers or spells. He relied on his grand movements and powerful body. There was no defense. He attacked without restraint. As Hanju began to curse Pangu with his lifespan, wisps of black aura began to overflow from Pangu's body, slowing down his battle speed. The Fiend Celestial's morale soared when they saw this. Pangu was about to collapse. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial noticed the black aura around Pangu and was shocked. That was the Dark Forbidden Lord. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial was surprised. Why did the Dark Forbidden Lord help him? Could it be that Pangu was also a threat to the Dark Forbidden Lord? That made sense. Once Pangu became stronger and swept through the chaos, how could the Dark Forbidden Lord realize his ambitions? From the Dark Forbidden Lord's performance, this fellow definitely had the ambition to plot against the chaos. With that thought, the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial attacked again, preparing to kill Pangu together. On the other side, Hanju's lifespan began to decrease. As he attacked, Pangu began to be beaten. Pangu, you are indeed powerful. You fought so many chaotic Fiend Celestials alone, and there are even great Tao Supreme existences. They are actually not your match. You are so strong, you indeed need to be titled. Hanju thought silently. From the way Pangu crushed the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial, Hanju was very likely not his match. It was just nice to let Pangu be severely injured and rest for a period of time, giving him time to develop. When Hanju's lifespan was deducted by nearly 5 quadrillion years, the Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial severely injured Pangu. Pangu's arms turned into ashes, but his aura was still ferocious. However, Pangu was not a ferocious beast. After fighting for a while more and confirming that he could not win, he could only retreat. The other Fiend Celestials followed suit. Immediately after, news of Pangu being severely injured appeared in Hanju's emails. In the end, the mysterious mighty figure saved Pangu. The Fiend Celestial side won. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial roared angrily. Its voice pierced through layers of space and shook the world. Hanju put down the Book of Misfortune and sighed. Pangu. Although Pangu had lost and fled, he felt that he had not lost. His blood was ignited by Pangu. He had to fight Pangu in this life, but not now. With the chaotic consciousness behind him, it was impossible for Pangu to lose in a one-on-one situation. Then again, Pangu had only been born not long ago, but he could already suppress a great Tao Supreme. Was there really someone born with unparalleled strength? Hanju looked at the Taoist temple next door and saw his son through Xing Hongshuan's abdomen. This kid's blood essence was already comparable to a sage. Could he compare to Pangu when he was born? Hanju suddenly looked forward to his son's birth. However, the chaos could only accommodate one primordial Fiend Celestial. That was unless Hanju jumped out of the primordial Fiend Celestial's identity. Could there be a higher level? Hanju felt that it was possible. The previous primordial Fiend Celestial had died because of the appearance of the chaos. But why didn't he stop the chaos? Could it be that the chaos was stronger than him? Could it be the chaotic consciousness? It was not to the extent that the chaotic consciousness was only a Tao creator. Hanju suspected that the Creator Lord was the previous primordial Fiend Celestial. He might be pursuing greater power, and only gave the chaos a chance, because he failed. The strongest in the current chaos was only a Tao creator. Wait, outside the chaos? I want to know if there are existences beyond the Tao creator realm outside the chaos. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He asked again, how strong is the strongest existence outside the chaos? Outside the chaos was a blank domain. There couldn't be living beings, but what if there was a living being that was not what he knew? Just like the inauspicious evil, the great Tao Supreme, who is imprisoned by a blank domain. There is no life or freedom. Hanju completely relaxed. The chaos was already endless. Hanju would start to question if there really was the strongest, if there was a wider space or stronger existence outside the chaos. Chapter 8:12 Buddha Spirit, Jiangju Escher. Chapter 8:12 Buddha Spirit. Jiangju Escher. The news that Pangu had fled with heavy injuries quickly spread in the chaos. However, the chaos was too great, So the news did not spread quickly. The Grand Primordium Fiend Celestial was very scheming. It deliberately mentioned the Dark Forbidden Lord when it spread this matter, saying that if not for him, they would definitely lose. Although it was the truth, it also pulled the Dark Forbidden Lord out again, and even flattered him. Pango also knew of the Dark Forbidden Lord's existence. Heavenly Court. It was hundreds of years later, when the evil Heavenly Emperor learned of Panga's defeat. Is the Dark Forbidden Lord out again? Even Pangu was severely injured by the curse. He's too powerful. The evil Heavenly Emperor sighed, his tone intriguing. The three divine generals were in the hall. Black Heaven General said, Your Majesty, Pangu will probably rest for a period of time. Should the Heavenly Court's expansion plan continue? Because of the battle between Pangu and the chaotic Fiend Celestial, the evil Heavenly Emperor was worried that the heavenly troops would be accidentally injured during their mission. So he retracted his troops and told them to rest. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0XN0VL. C0M. The evil Heavenly Emperor said, There's no hurry. The situation is unknown. Let's wait and see. What if Pangu is lively tomorrow? The existence of the chaotic Fiend Celestial is something we can't guess. He sighed. He had once had 2 chaotic Fiend Celestials. His heart was filled with regret every time he thought about this. The reason why the Heavenly Court did not expand was mainly that there were no more chaotic Fiend Celestials. Not only were the 2 new divine generals inferior to the previous Han Tua and Etion, but they also did not do their best. Not all the immortals supported the evil Heavenly Emperor to continue expanding. More immortals felt that consolidating the existing forces was the most important. Black Heaven General was silent for a moment before saying, Your Majesty, do you know the Buddhist world? The evil Heavenly Emperor said, Of course I know. The Lord of the Buddhist world is still Tuor's disciple nephew. Recently, a talented Buddhist spirit was born in the Buddhist world. He successfully attained the Tao less than 200,000 years after his birth. Although the Buddhist Lord has enlightened him, his talent is unquestionable. This Buddhist spirit is born to fight. He is a chaotic life form comparable to a chaotic Fiend Celestial. Black Heaven General said softly. How could he not know the relationship between the evil Heavenly Emperor and the Buddhist world? He only mentioned this because he knew. The evil Heavenly Emperor understood, and his thoughts wandered. Is he really that powerful? Yes. Even the great Tao Divine Spirit, the divine rogue Taoist, has personally visited and even given him a precious treasure. Then, I have to go take a look. The evil Heavenly Emperor narrowed his eyes. The Black Heaven General stopped talking. The other 2 divine generals did not say anything, but they also lowered their heads slightly. 20,000 years passed. Hanju was nearly 1.8 million years old. Panga had indeed stopped after being severely injured. At least he couldn't be seen in his circle of friends. On this day, Hanju opened his eyes. It was mainly because Chu Shuren had sent him a dream not long ago. But he had not used the invocation technique. It was probably not an urgent matter. Hanju sent a dream to Chu Shuren. In the dream, Chu Shuren opened his eyes and saw that it was Hanju. He immediately stood up and bowed. What is it? Hanju asked. Chu Shuren explained the reason. It turned out that a prodigy had been born in the Buddhist world, but he was warlike by nature. Coincidentally, the evil Heavenly Emperor came and wanted to nurture this prodigy. Chu Shuren was a little hesitant. The reason why he did not directly reject it was that the evil Heavenly Emperor had indeed nurtured Han Tua very well. Grandmaster, can we trust the evil Heavenly Emperor? Chu Shuren asked. Hanju said, If you mention me and he makes a promise, we can believe it. The key is, are you willing to give him away? Chu Shuren smiled bitterly. I have to. This kid is too noisy. He sparred with the disciples of the Buddhist world and severely injured them every time. It's probably not a good thing to keep him around. I really don't know how to correct his personality. It's good to follow the evil Heavenly Emperor. I can only let go after experiencing it. Hanju asked curiously, Why can the Buddhist world give birth to such a prodigy? Chu Shuren said, After all, it's a world formed by the great Tao. It has endless creation. The chaos is a world woven by the 3,000 great Tao. In the future, An existence stronger than the chaotic fiend celestial will appear. I think it's possible. Hanju couldn't help but think of the Heavenly Emperor. Why didn't the Heavenly Tao have such a stunning prodigy? Although the Heavenly Tao had many geniuses, none of them caught Hanju's eye. Perhaps the Heavenly Tao was not the great Tao. The limit of creation was still a little lacking. After chatting for a while, the dream ended. Hanju didn't take this to heart. However, half a day later, the evil Heavenly Emperor sent him a dream. In the dream, he thanked Hanju and promised that he would nurture the Buddhist spirit into a genius and let it return to the Buddhist world in the future. He had helped the Buddhist world nurture geniuses, and they had helped him expand his territory. It was a win-win situation. He did not expect the Buddhist spirit to serve him forever. And however, he believed that as the heavenly court became stronger, sooner or later, a Buddhist spirit that truly belonged to the heavenly court would appear. After the dream ended, Hanju looked at the Heavenly Tao next. He wanted to find unparalleled prodigies in the Heavenly Tao. Xia Zhizuan and the others were a little weak. At the very least, it had to be an existence like Qin Ling. After searching for a while, Hanju really found one. He was also born in the Heavenly Tao race. He was born 300 years ago, and was still an immortal emperor. Becoming an immortal emperor in 300 years was too exaggerated. Although the current Heavenly Tao spirit Qi was far greater than before, becoming an immortal emperor at 300 years old was unprecedented. What realm was Hanju when he was 300 years old? He counted with his fingers, and discovered that this child indeed had a background. This child was called Jiang Juesher. He was the elder brother of the disciple of the human school, Jiang Dugu. Unlike Jiang Dugu, who had always been growing, Jiang Juesher had passed away in meditation when he reached the deity realm. After that, he would continue to pass away in meditation every time he cultivated to the deity realm. One life after another, his talent increased every time. Now he had already lived for 100,000 lifetimes, and his reincarnation body had already passed several calamities. Even the Tao destruction mystical power did not destroy his soul. Because he had passed away after reaching the deity realm, Jiang Juesher had never appeared. Jiang Dugu also thought that his elder brother had long died. In this life, Jiang Juesher seemed to be on the verge of soaring. He wondered if he would still die in peace. In addition, the sages did not seem to sense his existence. He was too low profile, and his providence was extremely thin. If not for a great Tao sage like Hanju deliberately searching for geniuses, he might not have discovered him. Hanju was looking forward to it. He closed his eyes and continued cultivating. 10,000 years later he opened his eyes. He looked at Jiang Juesher again. In 10,000 years, this fellow had already reincarnated twice. He did not reveal his fame in either life. He secretly cultivated and quietly passed away, as if he did not exist in the Heavenly Tao at all. Hanju was very concerned about him. Why did he do this? Reincarnate continuously to increase his potential? His potential was already high enough. Why didn't he stop? Hanju decided to create a clone. When Jiang Juesher reincarnated again, he would let the clone go and take in a disciple. 4,000 years later, Jiang Juesher died in a valley. His soul entered the netherworld. Even the king of hell did not sense the terrifying potential in his soul, and dismissed him as a mortal. He reincarnated again without anyone knowing. In this life he was born in a village. His parents were still alive and he had siblings. Jiang Juesher had experienced all sorts of situations. He experienced life in the royal family, a family of suffering, a family of wealth, and even evil. However, he had always silently escaped karma and found a place to cultivate alone. Chapter 813 Follow Forever. Chapter 813 Follow Forever. A village with dozens of families was located in a forest. Men and women farmed and weaved. Chickens and dogs were everywhere, and smoke curled up from the chimneys. The village was isolated from the world. In the forest, behind a huge rock, a 2- or 3-year-old child was meditating and cultivating. His facial features were exquisite, and his face was flushed. He had the grace of a girl. He was Jiang Juesher. He had concealed himself deeply and pretended to drink Mengpo's soup. His memories were still there, so he had started cultivating when he was born. However, he had hidden it very well, and no one had discovered him. At this moment he suddenly heard footsteps. Jiang Juesher immediately opened his eyes and collapsed against the stone. His eyes instantly turned red, as if he had cried. A figure arrived in front of him. It was an old Taoist formed by Hanju's clone. His back was stooped, but a hint of Hanju's main body could still be seen between his brows. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M Hanju pretended to be surprised and muttered, "There's actually such talent in the world." He picked Jiang Juesher up and walked towards the village. Jiang Juesher drooled and scratched with his small hands. He was pure and cute. He felt very helpless. He encountered a cultivator who wanted to take him in as a disciple again. He had experienced so many reincarnations. Such a situation was not rare. So he did not panic and would slowly deal with it in the future. Hanju found Jiang Juesher's parents and expressed that he was a cultivator and was willing to take Jiang Juesher in as his disciple. He taught him in the village. His parents were very excited and knelt down to thank him. Ere this matter caused a commotion in the village. The villagers came to watch the commotion. As time passed, Hanju also integrated into it and taught Jiang Juesher cultivation. He only taught him ordinary cultivation techniques. However, in order to deal with it, Jiang Juesher also cultivated according to the cultivation technique he taught. 20 years later, Jiang Juesher, who had grown up, bid farewell and prepared to wander the world. In the end, Hanju insisted on following him, making him helpless. The master and disciple began to walk around the world. 3,000 years later, Hanju's hair was already white. He stayed in a simple Taoist temple by the river with Jiang Juesher. Compared to 3,000 years ago, Hanju looked older. His aura was like silk, and he couldn't even open his eyes. Jiang Juesher sat beside Hanju and opened his eyes. He said softly, "Master, my lifespan is up." Hanju didn't move. Jiang Juesher had to repeat himself. "Ah, lifespan. Your potential is so high. You've long become an immortal. Why do you still have a lifespan?" Hanju asked while trembling. After saying that, he couldn't help but cough. Please keep reading on my box in 0VL. C0M Jiang Juesher said, "I don't understand it either. Perhaps it's fate. The heavens gave me talent, but they also deprived me of my lifespan." Hanju stopped talking. Jiang Juesher glanced at him and sighed. Even a stone would be moved after 3,000 years of companionship. In this life, he owed his master the most. He did not tell his master that he had already reached the deity realm. He was prepared to die already, but he suddenly felt a little reluctant. He didn't know what his master would do after he died. His master was only at the soul formation realm. His lifespan was probably coming to an end. One Jiang Juesher only felt a little guilty, but he had experienced 100,000 reincarnations, and his Tao heart was as firm as a rock. See you in the next life. No, there's no next life. Jiang Juesher thought to himself. He had severed ties with countless relatives and wives. Once he reincarnated, it would be very difficult to meet them again. After countless reincarnations, he might have a chance to meet him, but he did not intend to befriend him. The karma that was severed should not be reattached. Several decades later, Jiang Juesher quietly reincarnated and came to another mortal world. In this life, he was born into a rich family. At the age of 3, snow fell from the sky. The world was vast and snow covered the city. Jiang Juesher was quietly cultivating in the courtyard when he suddenly heard the servants passing by talking about what was happening outside. "Is that old beggar dead or alive? I'm not sure, but lying at the entrance of our residence is not a good idea. Master has already sent someone to find a doctor." Since Jiang Juesher had nothing to do, he went to watch the commotion. A group of servants gathered in front of the mansion's entrance. Many commoners were also watching the commotion on the streets outside, pointing. Seeing Jiang Juesher come out, a servant girl hurriedly held his hand. However, she couldn't help but want to watch the commotion, so she carried him to the door. Jiang Juesher looked at the old beggar lying on the ground and suddenly frowned. "Master, Jiang Juesher had a strange expression. Wasn't this his master in his previous life? The weak old beggar slowly opened his eyes and met his gaze. The old beggar suddenly widened his eyes and flipped over, startling the crowd. The old beggar stared at Jiang Juesher and muttered, "Such potential. There's actually a second person in the world? Could it be the reincarnation of my disciple?" The young Jiang Juesher's mouth twitched. It was really his master. How did this old man find this place? He could cross worlds in just a few decades. Jiang Juesher suddenly smelled a conspiracy and instinctively became vigilant. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing in the previous 100,000 reincarnations. 10,000 years passed. Han Ju opened his eyes and looked at the heavenly Tao first. Jiang Juesher was still entangled with his clone. After meeting in his second life, Jiang Juesher was originally wary. Later, he discovered that his master had met him by chance. So the master and disciple began to wander the world again. Although he said that he was wandering the world, he was actually finding a place to hide and cultivate. He was isolated from the world and did not even have friends, let alone enemies. Han Ju admired Jiang Juesher even more. This fellow was not like a human. He was too determined, like a cultivation machine. In order to make Jiang Juesher no longer suspect his clone, Han Ju made the clone swear, "Even if I reincarnate for 10,000 lifetimes, I will definitely find my disciple and help him break the shackles of fate and obtain immortality." Jiang Juesher was extremely afraid when he heard this. Was this old man really going to pester him? However, the old man was only in the soul formation realm and should not live for long. Jiang Juesher passed away again after he reached the deity realm. Before he died, his master held his hand and cried, "The heavenly Tao is unfair. The heavenly Tao is unfair. Why did my disciple have to die after becoming an immortal?" Jiang Juesher felt a little uncomfortable, but he still closed his eyes in the end. Several decades later, Jiang Juesher was born into the royal family and was the prince. He was secretly happy. This time, that old man could not reach him, right? However, the court welcomed an immortal when he was 5 years old. It was his master. Unlike in his previous life, Han Ju was much younger in this life, as if he was in his 40s. When Jiang Juesher learned that this fellow had actually attained the grand unity Tao fruit, his lifespan increased greatly and his essence, energy and spirit also increased greatly. This dog's hit luck. Just like that, Jiang Juesher was pestered by Han Ju again. In the demonic path's abyss, turbid mist filled the air. Han Tuo and Yi Tian were fighting and were on par. The devil ancestor Lu Yuan suddenly appeared and said, "I have a mission for you." Han Tuo and Yi Tian immediately stopped. They came in front of the devil ancestor Lu Yuan with anticipation. They had been here for too long and wanted to go out. They were not the masters of bitter cultivation, to begin with. They needed to fight and constantly break through in battle, constantly surpassing their limits. Chapter 814 Divine Tao. Chapter 814 Divine Tao. What mission? Who? Yi Tian asked excitedly. He clenched his fists and his body emitted a sound like the roar of a tiger. Lu Yuan sized them up for a while before saying, "Break through the Divine Tao." Han Tuo asked curiously, "What Divine Tao?" The Divine Tao is the path to the Great Tao Divine Spirit. The Great Tao Divine Spirit is not formed by the Great Tao. Indeed, but something has to be different. This will be the beginning of the change. Prepare yourself. We'll leave in 1,000 years. Lu Yuan turned into demonic qi and dissipated the moment he finished speaking. Yi Tian smiled and said, "Ha ha, we're going to be Great Tao Divine Spirits? I heard that Great Tao Divine Spirits can control an area of the chaos." Han Tuo frowned. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. Be careful when the time comes. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M. He had a feeling that the devil ancestor was not planning to send them to the Divine Tao to become Great Tao Divine Spirits. The devil ancestor did not nurture them, because he loved talent. They were only pawns. Year after year passed. Han Ju was immersed in seclusion cultivation. Unknowingly, another 50,000 years passed. He opened his eyes and smiled. His cultivation level had improved again. It had been 500,000 years since his last breakthrough. He was getting closer and closer to the perfected Great Tao primordial chaos realm. He opened the emails. He had still not seen Pengu in the past tens of thousands of years. It seemed that he had completely stopped. Looking at his friends, nothing major had happened recently. Everything was fine. None of the emails were worth his attention. Hanju focused on Jiang Juesher. His clone had accompanied Jiang Juesher for tens of thousands of years and observed him, causing Hanju to like him more and more. He was truly suitable to be his disciple. Not many of Hanju's disciples truly matched his personality. The Black Hell Chicken, the Chaotic Heavenly Dog, and the other personal disciples had only been forcefully corrected by him. He had to take in this kid. Apart from his personality, Jiang Juesher's talent growth method also interested him. Please keep reading on myboxin 0VL. C0M. He couldn't see through him even as a great Tao sage. However, one thing was certain. Jiang Juesher did not have an impressive previous life. This was the development of the chaos. Juniors always surpassed their predecessors. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for the chaos to develop. If the earliest great Tao sages could see how their descendants rose, it would be very easy to monopolize this realm. In fact, there were always cultivators who advanced and stepped into the great Tao. I probably can't keep pestering him like this. I have to find a chance to really die. Hanju thought silently. He could feel that Jiang Juesher was beginning to dislike the clone. It was normal. It was fine if it was a lifetime or two. But if it was like this, wouldn't it be spying? In a corner of the immortal world, the old Hanju and Jiang Juesher sat together. Jiang Juesher glanced at his master beside him, feeling conflicted. He had reached the deity realm again. It was time for him to die. However, he did not want to be entangled with his master anymore. Although it was good to have someone to accompany him during his lonely cultivation years, he felt inexplicably uneasy. He felt that his master's background was not simple. He might be someone's pawn. Hanju suddenly opened his eyes and said softly, "Disciple, are you going to die again?" Jiang Juesher was silent. Hanju said faintly, "I can't see through your fate. You don't seem to want to escape it either. Perhaps you're worried about some existence. I'm an immortal emperor now after all. I'm willing to help you." Jiang Juesher rolled his eyes and said angrily, "How?" His master was usually indecent, especially after his cultivation level increased. He was always unreliable and liked to tease him. "I'll give up my cultivation to help you escape fate." He. Jiang Juesher felt that he was being impulsive again. Hanju slowly stood up and walked towards the sky. "I've lived for a long time and experienced all the situations in the world. I've been happy, cried, blessed, suffered, angry, hated, and regretted. I know that my path to immortality has come to an end. I'm afraid it's difficult for me to continue forward. I'm willing to give up my cultivation and soul to help my disciple, Jiang Juesher, break through the shackles of lifespan. I hope that the heavenly Tao can fulfill my wish." Hanju's voice echoed in the mountains. In an instant, the weather changed and thunder rumbled. Jiang Juesher hesitated. How could he have the will of the heavens? The reason he died was that he wanted to die. But if his master sacrificed himself now, wouldn't that be what he wanted? Although his master treated him very well, it had already begun to affect his cultivation. Under his gaze, Hanju turned into a beam of light and dissipated. Immediately after, the thunderclouds parted and a pillar of light shot down, absorbing the light. Then, the pillar of light suddenly landed on Jiang Juesher. It was so fast that he couldn't dodge it in time. Jiang Juesher sensed the providence of the heavenly Tao. His master was not joking. He had really sacrificed himself to fulfill his wish. Everything happened too quickly. Jiang Juesher couldn't help but be stunned. Yesterday, they were still discussing what wild animals on the mountain were delicious. He did not expect to be separated by life and death today. Yuan and Jiang Juesher smiled. "This old man must be messing with me. We'll definitely meet again in the next life." He stopped thinking and moved somewhere, preparing to die. Several decades later, the 10-year-old Jiang Juesher sat at the entrance of the courtyard and looked at the bustling streets. He was silently lost in thought. A woman returned from buying groceries and saw him sitting at the door. She smiled and said, "Young master, what are you thinking about again?" Jiang Juesher came back to his senses and smiled. "Nothing. I wonder what we're eating tonight. I'll cook fish for you tonight." "Thank you, auntie." Then, Jiang Juesher continued to stare blankly. "Why aren't you here yet?" Time passed quickly. 30,000 years passed. After reincarnating, Jiang Juesher, who had become an adult again, stepped onto the path of the world alone. When he walked out of the town he had lived in for 20 years, he saw an old man under an old tree not far away. He was sitting cross-legged with a pipe in his mouth. Jiang Juesher's expression changed as he carefully walked over. Could it be him? He's here again? The old man opened one eye and glanced at him. He grinned and said, "Young master, do you want to cultivate? I have the Panga body tempering technique, the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's invincible technique, and the Xian Du divine refinement technique. Which one do you want? The price is negotiable." He took out manuals from his clothes. Jiang Juesher was stunned. He shook his head with a bitter smile and left. The old man cursed silently and put away the manual. Jiang Juesher walked towards the official road. He muttered to himself, "Why is this happening? I clearly don't like him very much. I even dislike him. Perhaps it's because no one has ever accompanied me for so long. No matter how many times the cycle of reincarnation changes, he will always try his best to find me. So he didn't scheme against me or use me. He really only treated me as his disciple. His heart really ached for me." Jiang Juesher's eyes became firm. He was not immortal and would not be immersed in sorrow. In that case, he wanted to cultivate with his master. One day, he wanted to become a sage or even surpass it. As long as he was strong enough, he would be able to revive his master sooner or later. When that day comes, I'll be your master and you'll be my disciple. I'll protect you. Chapter 8:15 Zenith Heaven in One Day. Chapter 8:15 Zenith Heaven in One Day. Hanju opened his eyes after cultivating in seclusion for 30,000 years. It wasn't because of Jiang Juesher, but because Heavenly Venerate Xian Du had sent him a voice transmission. As for Jiang Juesher, Hanju didn't plan to care anymore. He had already planted karma and would accept it in the future. He believed that this experience was unforgettable for Jiang Juesher. One day, Jiang Juesher would face trouble that he could not resist. He would then stop. Hanju came to the 33rd heaven. He noticed that the aura of the cultivators here had increased. At least 1 million cultivators were scattered in the various sage Dao fields. It was probably to carry out Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's 100 Sages development plan. Hanju came to the Universal Hall. He met Heavenly Venerate Xian Du in another space. It looked like the Universal Hall, but there were tens of thousands of Dao seekers cultivating in the true Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du smiled. "How's fellow Taoist Han's cultivation recently? Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VL. C0M Hanju said. "It's all right. Why are you being polite to me? Just say what you want to say." "It's like this. The Divine Tao has been opened. The leader of the Divine Spirits has announced that he is willing to give the chaotic life forms a chance. All living beings can challenge the Divine Tao, and there will be 5 spots for the Great Tao Divine Spirit. Fellow Taoist Han, do you want to go?" Heavenly Venerate Xian Du smiled. There was a hint of anticipation in his tone. The Great Tao Divine Spirit was not simple. Although Hanju had killed a Great Tao Divine Spirit before, they were supreme in the chaos and controlled the chaotic order. Furthermore, his cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds after obtaining the Divine Spirit's providence. Most importantly, his identity would change. The Great Tao Divine Spirit was like the Emperor of the mortal world, the immortal God of the immortal world, the legitimate supreme authority. Hanju said, "Forget it, I'm not going. It's too dangerous." Heavenly Venerate Xian Du asked in confusion, "Are you still afraid of danger now?" He thought that Hanju was already invincible. Even his master had not killed 13 lives at once, much less slaughtered a Great Tao Divine Spirit. Of course, there's always someone stronger. Fellow Taoist Xian Du, we still have to be cautious and not be too reckless. It's not easy for the Heavenly Tao to develop. Sometimes it's good to just accept it. Don't always be the first to stand out, Hanju said meaningfully. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu was deep in thought. He didn't care about what the others said, but it meant something different when Hanju spoke. Thinking about it carefully, he had indeed become arrogant recently. Not only he, but the other sages were also the same. They were a little arrogant when facing the other nearby worlds. They wanted a share of all sorts of important matters, as if they were already the overlords of the chaos. However, the chaos was huge. The domain covered by the heavenly Tao was like a drop in the ocean. It was not worth mentioning. The great Tao divine spirits' positions would be fought for by the entire chaos. How could it be affected by the heavenly Tao? Please keep reading on MyBox and 0VL. C0M. The more Heavenly Venerate Xiandu thought about it, the more afraid he became. Hanju said, "Are there any good geniuses in the heavenly Tao recently? I mean geniuses like Li Daokong and Etian." Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said, "There are, but they are always a little lacking, especially compared to Etian and your son. I have to say that these two juniors are really lucky. They have already attained the Freedom Realm not long ago, and made a name for themselves in the chaos." He was also depressed. He felt that the heavenly Tao was lacking something. He couldn't sense what was wrong. There were many geniuses, but few were stunning, perhaps because it was too peaceful. It restricted their talent. There was a reason why heroes appeared in troubled times. Some geniuses needed the environment and the stimulation and motivation. Will we allow internal competition in the heavenly Tao after the calamity ends? Heavenly Venerate Xiandu asked cautiously. Hanju said, "There's no need to make it public. It's fine as long as the Providence sects don't interfere. It's time for the immortals to rise." Heavenly Venerate Xiandu nodded. Then he mentioned the Buddhist world. The Buddhist world developed extremely well, especially after a freedom mighty figure joined it. It was even more attractive to the chaotic life forms. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu knew that the Lord of the Buddhist world was Hanju's grand disciple. Speaking of it, he couldn't help but sigh. How could the heavenly Tao not have people with great providence and top geniuses? Didn't you take them all away? The two of them chatted for a long time before Hanju left. He came to Ji Xianxin's Tao field. There were also many cultivators in the Tao field. Most of them were from the heavenly race and the calamity race. The two of them came to the palace deep inside. Ji Xianxin was still nervous when facing Hanju. His relationship with the hidden sect was very subtle, and he had no contact with Hanju ever. Since he failed to compete with Fang Liang, it was mainly because he felt embarrassed. Later, when he was in seclusion, he indeed realized his mistake, but he and Fang Liang could no longer reconcile. The brothers who were once the best of friends had already become strangers. Occasionally, they would only nod when they met. "Master, Ji Xianxin opened his mouth, but he did not know what to say. Hanju asked him how his cultivation had been recently, and how the heavenly race was managing. He didn't seem to have any grudges. Unknowingly, Ji Xianxin was no longer nervous. Thinking about it carefully, it was ridiculous. How could his conflict with Fang Liang affect Hanju? Their battle was probably child's play in his eyes. Hanju said, "Cultivate well. Don't slack off when you reach the sage realm. Achieve the great Tao as soon as possible, understand?" Ji Xianxin said excitedly, "I understand. So Master has such expectations for me?" Hanju suddenly sighed. "Do you remember when we joined forces to fight against the immortals? At that time, I thought you would be the one to accompany me to the end of the great Tao. I thought highly of your potential, but you began to slack off ever since you took the reins of authority." Ji Xianxin was both surprised and ashamed. He didn't expect Hanju to think highly of him. He was ashamed that the difference between them was really too great. Thinking of Hanju, he rarely cared about the hidden sect, but it was still developing very well. Should he let go? Hanju didn't say anything else, and started to preach the Tao to Ji Xianxin alone. 100 years later, he found Fang Liang and Su Qi and preached the Tao to them. After hundreds of years, he returned to the Taoist temple to continue cultivating. It was necessary to rope in disciples occasionally, to prevent them from becoming distant over time. He saw Ji Xianxin's excitement and enjoyed it. This kid was still thinking about his master. Time passed quickly. 100,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hanju was about to reach 2 million years old. He was looking forward to it. The 2 million year threshold should give a good reward. On this day, he opened his eyes and habitually checked his emails. At this moment, he suddenly felt something and looked over. The providence of the heavenly Tao changed drastically. It came from an island outside the immortal world. It was Jiang Juesher. Jiang Juesher sat on the peak of the island. His robes fluttered as his dermic powers increased steadily, shaking the heavenly phenomena. 2 Mystic Divine Origin. 3 Mystic Divine Origin. Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. In just a day, Jiang Juesher directly became a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. He kept waving his hands and transformed into a strange phenomenon around him. A purple wheel appeared between his eyebrows, looking like a Taiji painting. It's time to awaken the accumulation of 150,000 lifetimes, Jiang Juesher muttered to himself. The purple wheel between his eyebrows spun at high speed, crazily absorbing the spirit qi of heaven and earth. The boundless spirit qi and connate qi of the entire immortal world were shaken. With him as the center, a terrifying storm formed, covering billions of kilometers of sea, and startling the 33rd heaven. Chapter 8:16 Ultimate Cultivation Technique. Innate Great Creation. Chapter 8:16 Ultimate Cultivation Technique. Innate Great Creation outside the 33rd heaven, in the Universal Hall. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu, who was preaching, suddenly stopped. Tens of thousands of listeners opened their eyes. What aura is this? Someone obtained the Zenith Heaven Tao fruit. Why is the Zenith Heaven Tao fruit causing such a huge commotion? No, it's not only Zenith Heaven. Why can't I deduce this person's providence? The Tao seekers discussed. Their cultivation levels were not low. They could see Jiang Juesher, who was breaking through at a glance, but they could not deduce his past. A Tao seeker looked at Heavenly Venerate Xiandu and asked, "May I ask who this person is?" Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VL. C0M Heavenly Venerate Xiandu said. Speaking of which, this person has a relationship with our human school. His name is Jiang Juesher. He once joined the human school with his younger brother Jiang Dugu. For some reason, this person left the human school and died in the world. He was puzzled. He did not recognize Jiang Juesher before. But now, he realized that he was not simple. Although he was only 2,000 years old in this life, it was a long time ago. Most importantly, he actually could not understand why Jiang Juesher could reach the Zenith Heaven realm in a day and still want to continue breaking through. Wasn't this the top prodigy that fellow Taoist Han wanted? Heavenly Venerate Xiandu had the intention to recruit him. Not only the Universal Hall, but the other sage Tao fields were also discussing Jiang Juesher. Jiang Juesher could be said to have endured for 1 trillion years and shocked the world. All the sages were like Heavenly Venerate Xiandu. They didn't know Jiang Juesher, but they all wanted to subdue him now. What a prodigy! There had never been such a huge breakthrough since ancient times. No one disturbed Jiang Juesher. 10 days later, Jiang Juesher broke through to the pseudo-sage realm in one go, but he did not stop. The entire immortal world was affected by him. The spirit qi far away even began to thin. It was obvious how exaggerated Jiang Juesher's breakthrough was. Hanju was also paying attention to him. Could it be that this child had grasped the great Tao? Please keep reading on my box in 0VL. C0M No. There was no great Tao power. It was a cultivation technique. What cultivation technique was so powerful? Cultivation techniques became unimportant after attaining the primordial chaos Tao fruit. Sages only comprehended the great Tao. This was the first time Hanju saw such a cultivation technique. I want to know what cultivation technique Jiang Juesher cultivates. 500 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? This was already comparable to the Great Tao Supreme Realm. Moved, Hanju chose to continue. Great Reincarnation Creation Technique. Ultimate Cultivation Technique. It was comprehended by Jiang Juesher when he comprehended the creation of the heavenly Tao. After experiencing 10,000 reincarnations, he can constantly compress his cultivation and increase his potential. There is no end to it. Ultimate cultivation technique. Hanju was secretly shocked. So impressive? He couldn't help but ask, why can Jiang Juesher comprehend such a cultivation technique? 3 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. The fate of creation is indescribable. The chaotic consciousness, Pangu, the Tao ancestor, Jiang Juesher, and the others all have the potential of the great creation. Unable to understand, Hanju could only attribute it to his potential. This kid was impressive. He was actually comparable to the chaotic consciousness, Pangu, and the Tao ancestor. Several months later, Jiang Juesher used his strength to attain the Tao and directly attain the primordial chaos Tao fruit, shocking the world. A huge amount of heavenly Tao providence surged into his body, and the endless sea stirred up a storm. At this moment, a line of words suddenly appeared in front of him. Detected bearer of connate providence, check its origin. Hanju raised his eyebrows. He immediately chose to check. Jiang Juesher, early stage primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal, innate great creation, heavenly Tao great emperor, life and death great emperor, reincarnation great emperor, ultimate creator. Because you have accompanied him, he has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 5 stars. Hanju was moved. This fellow actually kept growing into a peerless prodigy that shocked the system under his watch. Amazing. This series of providence was clearly not simple. It was not there before. After attaining the primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm, Jiang Juesher's breakthrough finally ended. The spirit chi no longer gathered towards him. Something that shocked the sages happened. Jiang Juesher was not expelled from the immortal world by the heavenly Tao. Impossible. He was not a heavenly Tao sage. Even if he was, he should be expelled to the 33rd heaven and stay away from all living beings. At the peak of the mountain, Jiang Juesher slowly opened his eyes. A purple wheel floated above his head. It was larger than the entire island and spun on its own. It was dazzling. Jiang Juesher looked at his hands and smiled. He had finally succeeded after countless years of cultivation. There were not many existences older than him in the current heavenly Tao. Some sages could even be considered his juniors. Heaven does not let down those who work hard. From now on, I will have no limits, Jiang Juesher muttered to himself as he stood up. With a thought, he swept through the myriad worlds. All living beings entered his eyes. For some reason, Jiang Juesher thought of the old Taoist who had sacrificed himself to enlighten him. There was no surprise in his heart, only endless regret. He couldn't find the old Taoist soul. Even if providence was connected to the heavenly Tao, it seemed that he had really sacrificed himself. His body and soul had been destroyed. Jiang Juesher's eyes became firm. Since sages can't, I'll surpass them. Jiang Juesher looked up at the sky and transformed into a purple rainbow that soared into the sky. He pierced through the 33rd heaven and arrived at the peak of the heavenly Tao. He looked down and closed his eyes, quietly sensing his cultivation. At this moment, figures appeared nearby. They were the heavenly Tao sages. Li Taiga smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist is really powerful. You attain the Tao in one day. It's unprecedented." Yang Che smiled strangely. This potential probably surpasses the divine might heavenly sage. With that said, he felt many dissatisfied gazes and hurriedly shut up. Damn it. Are you all the dogs of the divine might heavenly sage? I'm just casually praising someone, and you're already anxious? Yang Che was indignant. He was clearly working hard, but he could not integrate into the circle of sages. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du also appeared. He stared at Jiang Juesher and smiled. I didn't expect the human school to produce such a prodigy. It's the fortune of the human school. Jiang Juesher opened his eyes and glanced at him. I've long become unrelated to the human school and the heavenly Tao. Don't worry. I won't stay even though I can enter the immortal world. I'm leaving to continue pursuing the great Tao. With that, he turned around and left without any hesitation. The sages were stunned. He left just like that. Aren't you going to repay the heavenly Tao's kindness? Heavenly Venerate Wufa snorted. Jiang Juesher stopped and said, I will definitely return if the heavenly Tao is in trouble in the future. Ji Xianxian said. Tianzhan, test his cultivation. With that, the new sage immediately flew towards Jiang Juesher. Jiang Juesher did not even turn his head as he said, "Go out and fight, lest you alarm all living beings. All of you can attack. Let me see my current strength." His tone was calm, but his words were extremely arrogant. Han Ju, who was in the Taoist temple, suddenly frowned. Why had this fellow's temperament changed drastically? He had gone astray. This was not stable enough. Jiang Juesher and Tianzhan arrived at the dark forbidden zone. Facing each other, Tianzhan was the first to attack. He slapped out with both hands, and his dermic powers transformed into the figures of countless heavenly races, heavenly soldiers. They swept through the dark forbidden zone in a mighty manner. Jiang Juesher waved his sleeve and dispersed all his dermic powers. His left hand formed a seal, and he slapped forward. The purple wheel shot out, and almost instantly passed through space to arrive above Tianzhan's head. Chapter 817 Primordial Chaos Great Creation. Chapter 817 Primordial Chaos Great Creation. The purple wheel quickly descended and wrapped around Tianzhan. He struggled with all his might and discovered that he could not break free. He was also a ruthless person. He directly left his body, and his sage soul arrived behind Jiang Juesher. "Umph!" Tianzhan snorted coldly and struck out with his palm. In his palm was a universe with stars that were dazzling and illusory. This palm struck Jiang Juesher, causing his robes to flutter. In the next second, Tianzhan was shocked to discover that his dermic powers had been sucked away. What happened? Jiang Juesher turned around and struck out with his palm. In Tianzhan's eyes, this palm was extremely slow, but his reaction was even slower, as if his body was already inferior to his, and he could not control it freely. Please keep reading Zero in MYB Zero's novel. Calm, he watched as Jiang Juesher's palm struck him. In a daze, he saw that Jiang Juesher's palm also contained a universe. Boom! Tianzhan was drowned by the terrifying purple dermic powers, and was instantly annihilated. Only a remnant soul floated in the void after the dermic powers dissipated. Jiang Juesher did not kill him. He turned around and looked in the direction of the heavenly Tao. The sages were stunned. It ended so quickly? I'll do it. Yang Che immediately flew out of the heavenly Tao. How could he allow others to destroy his morale? However, he was defeated in less than 3 breaths of time. Nu Su Du Dao, Li Taigu, Han Yu, Tai Su Tian, Primordial Chaos Buddha, and the other new sages went forward one after another and returned in failure. Li Taigu lasted the longest, but he was defeated in less than 10 breaths. Inside the Taoist temple, Han Ju was deep in thought. Jiang Juesher could reflect all mystical powers and dermic powers. Furthermore, it was not as simple as that. The great Tao power of time and space around him fluctuated when he attacked. This was quite something. No wonder he was so arrogant. Han Ju sent a voice transmission to Heavenly Venerate Xian. Do Heavenly Venerate Xian? Du had a strange expression and said, "Forget it, let him go. Please keep reading on my box novel." Calm, the other sages were shocked. Heavenly Venerate Wufa was about to make a move when he heard this. He glared. Let him go just like that. Where's the dignity of the heavenly Tao? Heavenly Venerate Xian, Du sent a voice transmission to him. He immediately smiled and said, "Then forget it. How can I bicker with a junior?" The other sages looked at each other. What happened? Why did Heavenly Venerate Wufa change his expression so quickly? Jiang Juesher cupped his hands and bowed to the heavenly Tao. Then, he turned around and left, quickly disappearing into the darkness. Many pseudo-sages and Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals in the heavenly Tao witnessed this scene. Jiang Juesher's name was deeply engraved in their hearts. The reason why Han Ju asked Heavenly Venerate Xian Du to stop was to let Jiang Juesher suffer outside. If Heavenly Venerate Wufa and Heavenly Venerate Xian Du attacked, it would not be good, and it would easily cause Jiang Juesher to break up with the heavenly Tao. Good kid, I want to see what you can do, Han Ju muttered to himself. His boring cultivation years were filled with joy and anticipation. He closed his eyes and continued cultivating. Jiang Juesher's matter was hidden by the sages. Thousands of years later, all living beings forgot about it. Year after year passed. More than 3,000 years later, detected that you are 2 million years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately, and spread the name of the primordial fiend celestial. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a great Tao guard. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a primordial fragment. Primordial fragment. Something new finally appeared. Hanju directly chose the second option. You choose to cultivate in a low-profile manner, and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a primordial fragment. Primordial fragment. Gather all 9 primordial fragments, and you can obtain a primordial chaos great creation. Hanju was secretly puzzled. What was the primordial chaos great creation? Primordial chaos great creation. It can create cultivation techniques, worlds, races, and everything. Creating everything. It sounded so cool. Can I use the primordial chaos great creation to create a creator lord level guard? No, the primordial chaos creation can only create existences. All existences born have to grow slowly. They will not be higher than your cultivation level. Hanju curled his lips. That was useless. Then, is the race I create only an individual or large in number? Individual. An individual who can reproduce a race. Hanju dismissed the thought of using this to create 3,000 chaotic fiend celestials. Creating everything. Can I use the primordial chaos great creation to elevate my bloodline? His son would be born as long as he surpassed the primordial fiend celestial. Yes, Hanju's eyes lit up upon seeing this word. Primordial chaos great creation. How impressive. However, on careful thought, it would still take 10 million years, even if a primordial fragment appeared every million years. Hanju calmed down, and took out the creation spirit stone, to fuse with a ball of fiend celestial chi. After fusing, he continued cultivating. Compared to the primordial chaos great creation, he had to break through to the perfected great Tao primordial chaos realm first. Soon, in the Buddhist world, dusk filled the sky like golden light. Temples floated above the clouds. In a huge palace, Buddhas gathered. Chu Shuren sat on the lotus throne. His million-foot-long body looked extremely majestic. The Buddhas looked tiny in front of him. Beside Chu Shuren sat a Buddha who was as tall as him. This Buddha was called the Sacred True Martial Buddha. He was a freedom sage. After entering the Buddhist world, he changed his name to Buddha. Chu Shuren asked, "Is Peacock really not leaving?" An Arhat said, "He said that he has to challenge the Sacred True Martial Buddha. Otherwise he won't leave." The Buddhas discussed softly. Sacred True Martial Buddha opened his eyes, and said with an indifferent expression, "Ignore him. He didn't barge in. He must have some concerns." Chu Shuren glanced at him and asked, "What are your concerns?" He's afraid of you? Then, why did he challenge you?" "Because I'm unwilling." The Sacred True Martial Buddha spoke very calmly, as if the peacock outside was not worth mentioning. At this moment a sneer sounded. "Sage True Martial, you really know how to brag. Back then, did you defeat me in the Heavenly Tao?" "It was Divine Lord Peacock. Didn't you say that you wanted to join the Heavenly Court? Why did you change your allegiance? You're really throwing your weight around." Divine Lord Peacock's words were filled with mockery. The Buddhas were silent, not daring to interrupt. Chu Shuren was expressionless, and was not provoked by Divine Lord Peacock. Sacred True Martial Buddha said, "I didn't win, but I broke your 5-colored divine light. Is that still far from defeating you?" Boom! The door of the hall was broken through by a 5-colored divine light. Divine Lord Peacock walked over in the light. He stared at the Sacred True Martial Buddha and smiled disdainfully. "I came in. Do you think I still care about you?" Sacred True Martial Buddha said, "Divine Lord, must you make enemies?" Divine Lord Peacock said arrogantly, "I have the Dark Forbidden Lord behind me. Are you not convinced? From today onwards, the Buddhist world will be occupied by the Dark Forbidden Lord. Whoever is not convinced will die." Sage True Martial, come out and fight with me outside. Don't hurt the innocent of your Buddhist world. If not for the fact that you're doing merit everywhere in the Buddhist world, I would have long charged in. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? What a joke. I don't even care about the great Tao sages. Chapter 8 1819 Fiend Celestials. Chapter 8 1819 Fiend Celestials. Facing such an arrogant Divine Lord Peacock, the sacred true martial Buddha snorted coldly. He did not say anything else, and directly escaped the Buddhist world. Divine Lord Peacock grinned, and disappeared from the hall. Immediately after, a terrifying battle pressure enveloped the Buddhist world, making all the living beings feel oppressed. Chu Shuren frowned. He had heard of Divine Lord Peacock. He was known as the #1 person below the Great Tao. With such a powerful enemy, he was also worried for the sacred true martial Buddha. Most importantly, Divine Lord Peacock represented the Dark Forbidden Lord. Who was the Dark Forbidden Lord? The most mysterious and terrifying evil existence in the chaos. Please keep reading Zero in MYB0's novel. Even if the sacred true martial Buddha won, could they stop the Dark Forbidden Lord? He was not the only one. The Buddhas in the hall were also worried. The Dark Forbidden Lord is here. What should we do? It's said that even the Dark Forbidden Lord retreats. What should we do? Sigh. But our Buddhist world doesn't have a powerful backer. Actually, the sacred true martial Buddha is already very strong, but there's always someone stronger. Chu Shuren frowned slightly upon hearing the Buddha's words. He hesitated for a moment, but still chose to visit Hanju in his dreams. Chu Shuren sent you a dream. Do you accept? Hanju, who was cultivating, was attracted by the notification. He had only been in seclusion for 27,320 years. It would be too unpleasant if he stopped now. Chu Shuren sent you a dream. Do you accept? Chu Shuren sent you a dream. Do you accept? Chu Shuren started to spam. Hanju had no choice but to stop. This was the first time Chu Shuren was so anxious. Something had probably happened. Hanju was excited. Could he show off now? Cough. Please keep reading on my box novel. It was time to show off. Hanju chose to accept the dream. In the dream, Chu Shuren immediately revealed his current situation. Grandmaster, the Dark Forbidden Lord has targeted me. Hanju's expression was calm, but he was speechless inside. Was there something wrong with Divine Lord Peacock? Didn't I ask you to find a place to enter seclusion? How dare you use my name to bully others? Hanju hesitated. If Divine Lord Peacock directly attacked, wouldn't that mean that he was related to the Dark Forbidden Lord? I'll think of a way. With that, Hanju ended the dream. He opened his eyes and looked at the chaos. He quickly caught sight of Divine Lord Peacock and the sacred true martial Buddha. They were fighting again. Hanju remembered that when Divine Lord Peacock came to the heavenly Tao, the two of them had also fought. He did not attack immediately. Instead, he watched quietly and waited for Divine Lord Peacock to win before sending a dream. However, at first glance, it was difficult to tell who was stronger. Was this the freedom sage that Chu Shuren had roped in? He was indeed capable. Hanju began to watch the show. Facing the five-colored divine light that could destroy anything, the sacred true martial Buddha did not use any Dharma treasures or mystical powers. Instead, he used his soul to constantly attack Divine Lord Peacock. His soul methods were endless, causing Divine Lord Peacock to be in a sorry state. Divine Lord Peacock might not win at this rate. The battle lasted for several days. After a draw, Divine Lord Peacock left after saying, "Just you wait. I'll come again. I'll step on you to attain the great Tao sooner or later." The sacred true martial Buddha did not pursue. After all, he was not confident in defeating Divine Lord Peacock. After Divine Lord Peacock left, Hanju didn't visit him in his dreams immediately. He wanted to arrange a mission for this fellow to divert his attention. In the palace of the Buddhist world, the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. Sacred true martial Buddha returned and frowned. Although Divine Lord Peacock was repelled, the panic brought by the Dark Forbidden Lord still enveloped them. Chu Shuren said expressionlessly, "Don't panic. I've already informed Grandmaster. This matter will be decided by him." The Buddhas were stunned and asked who his grandmaster was. Compared to the panic in the dream, Chu Shuren now displayed the composure of a Buddha. Heavenly Tao, divine might, heavenly sage. He once killed a great Tao divine spirit, and more than 10 great Tao sages. Furthermore, he has the backing of the Fiend Celestial race. The chaotic Fiend Celestial previously defeated Pangu. You should have heard of it. The entire palace exploded as soon as Chu Shuren finished speaking. It was actually the divine might heavenly sage. They had naturally heard of this name. It was the umbrella of the heavenly Tao. There was no doubt about his strength. Sacred True Martial Buddha glanced at him and said, "You hit it well." Chu Shuren said calmly, "Divine Lord Peacock has a backing, and so does the Buddhist world. I didn't want to mention it at first, and wanted to use Buddhist mantra to save the world. But sometimes, I have no choice but to use such rough methods." All the Buddhas looked at him in admiration, as expected of the Buddha Lord. In the blink of an eye, another 30,000 years passed. Hanju opened his eyes, and came to the second Tao field. He released the nurtured malevolent Fiend Celestial, and let Morong Qi lead it away. After that, he did not talk nonsense with Li Yao and Tao Comprehension Sword. Instead, he returned to the main Tao field. At this moment, the Black Hell Chicken, the Chaotic Heavenly Dog, the Three-Headed Wrm King, Sun Chang'an, Zhou Mingyue, Ada Xiao'er, Lu Huaxiu, the 8 Calabash Brothers, Diamond Rage, the Black Hell Demon Lord, Tu Linger, and the other personal disciples were already waiting in front of the Taoist temple. They had all reached the pseudo-sage realm. A total of 19 personal disciples knelt in front of the Taoist temple, nervous and excited. Hanju let them in. The Taoist temple was instantly crowded. "Are you ready? There will be a painful period next," Hanju asked. The 19 personal disciples replied in unison, "We're ready." No one was afraid or uneasy. They trusted Hanju completely. Hanju didn't say anything else. He directly dispersed their bodies, and placed their souls into the primordial world. He then found the Fiend Celestial Qi and fused it with them. With Hanju's current cultivation and experience, it was already very easy to fuse with the Fiend Celestial Qi. He no longer needed to be so careful. Next, he only needed time. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. He still felt a sense of achievement. He was not the only one becoming stronger. He also made the people around him become stronger. Hanju sent a voice transmission to Han Zuetian. Han Zuetian was the first transformed living being in the 100-peak Immortal River, and was also a personal disciple. Zhou Mingyue was evacuated, so Hanju decided to give him the authority of the hidden sect. Soon, Han Zuetian rushed over and knelt in front of him. He was very nervous and filled with anticipation. Unknowingly, "You are already a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. It's time for you to shoulder the responsibility of the hidden sect. Are you ready?" Hanju didn't say anything else, and went straight to the point. Han Zuetian's favorability was still 6 stars. He was trustworthy. The one who contacted Li Xianao the most was him. Han Zuetian said fearfully, "I'm afraid it's difficult for me to withstand it. Furthermore, Master and the others are above. They've already left. I plan to nurture you. You're not allowed to refuse." "Ah, thank you, Ancestor." Han Zuetian suppressed his joy. He was born to love power. He was just being polite. Hanju began to preach the Tao to him alone. It was a ritual to hand over power. Han Zuetian left 100 years later. Hanju preached the Tao to all the living beings in the 100-peak Immortal River. After another 100 years, he announced that Han Zuetian would be the 4th guardian of the hidden sect. From then on, he would control all the affairs in the 100-peak Immortal River, causing millions of disciples to be in an uproar. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.